Chapter 590. Seeing Zhang Qingping leave the stage angrily, Tang Ning finally turned around and looked at everyone. The reason why I placed the Fei Tian Awards next to my feet is because I know a lot of people don't think I deserve to receive this award. I'm sorry, but if I want to receive an award, then I need to make sure everyone is convinced. I know I've attracted a lot of criticism and attracted a lot of news. But I still remember that I am an actress. When it comes to film, I have to work hard. Today, I'm going to give the host a chance to make things difficult for me. You can give me any question you want, and I will perform on the spot. If everyone feels that my acting has problems and doesn't pass, I will immediately give up on the Fei Tian Awards and I will never act again. After hearing Tang Ning's words, everyone was shocked. Tang Ning was going to perform on the spot? Did she know where she was? All the titans of the film industry were here. Wasn't she afraid of embarrassing herself? Plus, the stakes were so high. She was going to give up on the Fei Tian Awards. Of course, there were also plenty of people that admired Tang Ning's courage. After all, if they were in Tang Ning's shoes, they would have already received an award. Who cared what the judges thought? It was already her glory. Who would want to mess around? But Tang Ning was not willing to admit defeat. This segment was not a rehearsal, nor could it be rehearsed in advance. But seeing Tang Ning's reaction, the host was more than willing to give her a chance to prove herself. After all, he had also fought his way to this point and had experienced plenty of darkness. So, he was more than willing to believe in the determination and strength of the young. Since that's the case, have you seen the film Insanity? This Oscar-winning film is a milestone in the field of crime films. And the female lead, Olga, was extremely famous. She was a schizophrenic, yet she was held hostage by the male lead. She negotiated with him the entire time and even acted as his psychological coach. The most interesting part of the film was Olga's second personality. She was a psycho that was even scarier than the male lead. On one hand, she tried to save the male lead, but on the other hand, she helped him commit murder. One of the most classic scenes was when Olga's first personality suspected that the male lead had an accomplice. But she couldn't find out who it was. In the end, through various clues, she realized it was herself. Yes, Tang Ning nodded her head as she recalled the film. Not only had she seen it before, she had even imitated Olga in WH because she wanted to experience Bai Qindong's character. Then, do you still remember the scene where Olga's second personality fainted after killing someone, and when she woke up, she searched everywhere for the murderer? Of course, Tang Ning nodded. In fact, the movie was so famous that Banzi, who played the role of Olga, suffered from split personality disorder and was still in the hospital to this day. Most of the people present had seen the film before. So, the scene that Gu Xingyun described left a deep impression on them.
Was Tang Ning going to act in that scene?
This was simply an impossible task. It was too difficult. Banzi was going crazy. One could imagine how engrossed she was when she was acting in this movie. Tang Ning. Would it really work? The scene was set in an underground garage with ventilation holes. At the time, Olga was sleeping in a car with a male driver. After the driver woke up, he tried to rape Olga. But at that time, Olga was hit in the head and passed out. Her second personality awakened, and she sliced the man into pieces without spilling a single drop of blood. By the time Olga woke up, the garage door was already open, but there was a corpse beside her. Olga searched everywhere for the murderer. But when she went to check the surveillance footage, she discovered that no one had entered the garage. Olga began to realize what was going on. She began to search for clues on the corpse. So, Tang Ning was going to act out the expression on her face after seeing the surveillance footage. There were no props, no help, just an empty stage. At first, Tang Ning lowered her head like she was thinking of something. Then, she suddenly lifted her head. At this moment, everyone was shocked, because the look in her eyes was like she had discovered something unknown, or like a demon with an axe had suddenly appeared behind her. The chilling look in her eyes was perfectly executed without any need for any lines. Everyone was captivated by the look in her eyes. It was like they were watching a live version of Insanity. Afterwards, Tongning suddenly turned around as if she had thought of something. With her back facing the audience, she took a few steps before turning back around. She scratched her head in disbelief at her own speculations. How could there be ghosts in this world? However, a few seconds later, her expression suddenly sank into a gloomy one. That expression made one shudder in fear. Because no one had been to the underground parking lot, she suspected that something supernatural had happened in this world, and that a ghost had appeared to kill people. But moments later, she suddenly started to think about why her arms were sore, and why there were black cloth scraps on her fingernails. She quickly ran back to the garage and searched around the corpse. Finally, she found the black glove. She was so shocked that she screamed and threw the glove far away. Afterwards, Tongning calmly stood up from the stage. As she was pregnant, she couldn't perform a complicated performance, so she had no choice but to give up. But the audience were not happy with the sudden end of the performance. Everyone was still waiting for the plot to continue, but the performance ended just like that. That's right, it was over. In reality, even if it was a classic film, even if it had a great performance, there were still other ways to express it. Tongning had used Bayenzi's foundation to add a lot of her own understanding and actions. She wanted to make Olga more lively, more developed, and closer to reality. The awards ceremony was silent for a long time. Only after a long time did they hear applause from below the stage. At this moment, Tongning looked at the audience below the stage, looked at the host on stage, and glanced at Zhang Qingping. She quietly retrieved the little phoenix in her hands and raised it up high. With Ting's support, she left the stage. This slap was too ruthless and too sudden. Tongning had never been afraid to prove herself. She believed in her own abilities. She had performed a classic on the spot and even surpassed it. Tongning had used her actions to prove to everyone that she deserved this award. Would anyone still doubt her qualifications? Unless she could guarantee that she could do better than Tongning. But who had the confidence to do so? Chapter 591. It didn't take long before the video of Tongning's audition went viral online. As a result, her acting skills and capabilities were further acknowledged by the public. Who else would question her right to receive the Best Newcomer award? Zhang Qingping and the other old fogies were slapped across the face by Tongning. In all these years, she was the first newcomer in the industry that dared to stand on the Fei Tian Award stage and publicly refute a respected senior. She was also the first actress that dared to openly audition in front of so many important actors. Her courage, her pride, and her backbone made everyone in the hall feel envious and impressed. This method of face slapping was extremely passionate and shocking. The stubborn old fogies in the industry should have been taught a lesson a long time ago. Tongning did something that made everyone happy today. I admire her. What if she tries to steal Best Actress from you? With her acting, she will receive the award sooner or later. There's no need for her to steal it from me. This was a conversation between the people in the venue. Afterwards, Gu Xingyan returned to Tongning's original position and concluded, I personally love insanity. So, when Tongning asked me to make things difficult for her, this was the name that came out of my mouth. Of course, I was well aware that this film wasn't easy to act out and would drive people crazy. So, I was truly making things difficult for Tongning. I never expected her to respond in such a serious manner. But I'm sure everyone here has seen that Tongning's acting is the best I've ever seen out of all the versions of Insanity, including the stage plays. In fact, she even managed to do a few things that Olga couldn't do in the original. This is too amazing. I really want to give Tongning a round of applause from the bottom of my heart. She truly deserves this award. After Gu Xingyan gave his speech, he looked down at the audience. At this time, Chen Feng, who had previously claimed to have watched the films, suddenly stood up from the first row of the VIP seats and received the microphone from Gu Xingyan. He smiled and said, Originally, I didn't want to waste everyone's time. After all, there's still a lot of things to do later on. But since Tongning has already proven herself, I think there are a few things I want to say. After saying that, the old man turned around and bowed deeply to the audience before he continued speaking. The old man's back was as straight as a towering tree from beginning to end. I told you. I watched all of them, and I especially liked one of them. I'm sure you guys can guess what it is. That's right, it's WH. It's not because I like disaster films, nor is it because Bai Qindong is in it. It's because I see Tongning's loyalty to the characters in the film. Afterwards, I did a lot of research on Tongning and found out that before she became an actress, she was already an international supermodel. She received the Best Contribution Award, triggered the Oriental trend, changed the American sense of beauty, and won countless international awards. In the modeling industry, she is a legend. But she decided to become an actress. She knew where she stood, so she continued to work hard. I couldn't understand why. Every time she passed a stage, there were so many people that wanted to embarrass her and obstruct her path. She was obviously talented and had a bright future, so why did she have to suffer so much? Later on, I finally understood. The reason why Tongning was plotted against and framed was because of her talent. At such a young age, she had already reached a level that not many people could reach. WH does have its flaws, but it still isn't Tongning's true ability. After watching 80% of the film, I can see that Tongning's acting is smooth and natural. Plus, based on the trailer, it was obvious that Tongning had suffered quite a bit because of this film. But she never asked Hai Rui to release any press releases about it. From start to finish, there was practically no hype. She is neither servile nor overbearing, and keeps a low profile. Why can't she receive the respect she deserves? Today, I, Chen Feng, would like to announce that as long as I have a good resource in my hands, the only person I will consider will be Tongning. In fact, this applies to international films. As for those that aren't as good as Tongning and refuse to improve, they can continue to stay where they are. Tongning is a brave person. No matter how much you try to stop her, you will not be able to stop her from becoming a top-notch actress. If you don't believe me, let's give it a try. As for why Tongning received the award, the Fei Tian Awards Committee will soon announce the reason for their decision. So, I will only say one thing. Tongning, you can do your best. Don't bother with the gossip, especially those that like to differentiate between the rich and the poor. Don't bother with their shameless thoughts of dragging you down with them. This is ridiculous. Everyone knew that Chen Feng was a proud person. Over the years, he had never publicly supported anyone because there were many things that he disliked about the industry. But because he had received a lot of Western education, he had a high EQ. So, even if he wasn't used to it, he wouldn't go around criticizing others. So, even though the old man had never scolded anyone, he had never truly praised anyone either. Yet, today he actually broke his usual routine and praised Tongning in front of so many people and at such a big event. He even invited her to act in a film. What was this? Glory. As for Tongning, after hearing the old man's words, she did not immediately try to curry favor with him. Her expression remained indifferent, calm, and unaffected. This was what old man Chen Feng liked the most about her. Even if I were to personally act in Chen Feng's role, I wouldn't necessarily be able to secure it. Wifey, you've earned again, Mo Ting laughed beside Tongning's ear. Aren't you going to thank the old man? Tongning did not say a word. Her attitude was gentle and humble as she stood up and bowed to the old man to show her gratitude. Everyone else was here to receive an award, yet not only did Tongning have to receive an award, she also had to win the favor of a good director and a role that countless people fought over. As for Zhang Qingping, he had a high status in the industry. But ever since he became a top-notch director and actor, he no longer had any projects. On the other hand, Chen Feng continued to improve. So, everyone respected Chen Feng even more. Now that Chen Feng had stepped out to mock Zhang Qingping, it was obvious that his joke had gotten out of hand. The younger generation would surpass the older. This was the main theme of the awards ceremony. Of course, in order not to take up too much of everyone's time, Tongning directly asked Gu Xingyun to continue presenting the awards. At this moment, both inside and outside the venue, everyone was talking about Tongning. But, as the center of attention, she was calmer than anyone else and more careful than anyone else. On her face, Only one word was written. I want to keep a low profile. Chapter 592. The entire Fei Tian Awards was like a meet and greet session for Tongning. No matter where she went, her name could be heard. Afterwards, the Fei Tian Awards presented the Best Actor and Best Actress winners. As the two went on stage to give their acceptance speeches, Gu Xingyin teased, "Do you guys feel bad that Tongning stole the limelight?"
No.
The winner of the Best Actress laughed as she held onto her trophy. "I admire her courage. She said what most of us were too afraid to say. That's why I support her." As for the Best Actor, he laughed. "I almost wanted to give her the trophy in my hand. But I never thought she had the ability to receive it." In reality, there was a clear difference between those that liked Tongning and those that hated her. Those who liked her could naturally see her low-key side, her hard work and high EQ. As for those who didn't like her, it was just like how no matter how wonderful a movie was, there would always be an audience that couldn't please them. They could always find the flaws that made them not know whether to laugh or cry. In reality, the netizens had already been taught a lesson by Tongning too many times. So, whether it was Tongning's character or acting, they all had their own answer. But Tongning didn't have a lot of productions, so all she could do was rely on her own ability to convince more and more people. After the awards ceremony ended, all the celebrities began to leave the hotel. At this time, Zhehao, who was holding onto his trophy, and an impatient Bei Qindong were standing in front of their seats and looking at Tongning. "Congratulations, Tongning." "Congratulations to you too." Tongning raised the trophy in her hand at Zhehao. "Ning Jie." Han Shiner, who hadn't seen her in a long time, leapt across the rows of red chairs and pounced into Tongning's arms. But before she could touch Tongning's dress, a long arm pulled her back. "She is currently pregnant. If you pounce on her too hard and hurt the baby, the man sitting opposite you will eat you alive," Bei Qindong warned. Han Shiner glanced at Tongning and then looked at Mo Ting, who had extended his hand. Ever since Tongning became pregnant, although Mo Ting had been taking care of her closely, he had become more and more unpredictable. "It's fine," Tongning quickly replied. Meanwhile, Mo Ting glared at Bei Qindong coldly. He was obviously the one who was jealous of both men and women, yet he was blaming the baby in Tongning's stomach. "Ning Jie, you are amazing." Unfortunately, Stupid didn't win an award. President Mo is obviously so capable. Stupid is participating in an international awards competition. Mo Ting replied calmly. This was because he had not applied for any awards for Stupid. His motive was simple. He didn't want Tongning and Zhehao's chances of winning an award. As a married couple, Tongning naturally understood Mo Ting's intention. So, she simply wrapped her arms tightly around Mo Ting's waist. At this moment, Mo Ting alone was enough. "It's okay, Ning Jie, let's go celebrate tonight." However, just as Han Shiner finished her sentence, Bei Qindong suddenly wrapped his arm around her neck and pulled her around. "We still need to return to the set." "What's there to celebrate?" "To celebrate my night scenes?" Han Shiner continued to be dragged away by him. Actually, everyone could tell that he was simply jealous. "Why do I feel bad seeing Shiner being bullied by him?" And Zhehao scratched his ear as a smile appeared on his face. "You're wrong. Bei Qindong is the king of jealousy. He treats Shiner extremely well, even if he doesn't say it." And Zhehao was simply joking. Just as he was about to leave with Tongning, a familiar figure suddenly appeared from behind Tongning. It was a familiar face, Lan Shi. The current Lan Shi seemed to have lost her edge. As she approached them, she no longer had the arrogant aura she once had. However, when Zhehao saw her, he couldn't help but sigh. After all, Yin Xian's death was something he would never be able to forget. "Congratulations, Zhehao. I never expected that instead of being a top manager, you would also be a director. What a surprise." And Zhehao looked at Lan Shi's outstretched hand, but he did not shake it. Lan Shi's lips curved upwards in self-mockery. She did not force the issue as she retracted her hand and said to Tongning, "As for you, Tongning, I never expected you to become an actress. In fact, I never expected you to be so successful. I've watched Stupid and WH. They were both amazing. I really regret not keeping you here in the past. But even if the past hadn't happened, I still wouldn't have been able to keep you here because... She glanced at Ting, who was standing behind Tongning. At least, we wouldn't be as embarrassed as we are now. Congratulations. Thank you, Tongning replied politely. Afterwards, she turned to Ting and Inzaheo and said, "Let's go." Although the industry had always supported the strong and trampled on the weak, it had already happened a long time ago. So, there was no need for Tongning to be so harsh. I hope you take care of yourself from now on. In this world, there will definitely be another Tongning. When that time comes, you just need to treat her well. She gave a gentle smile, and Tongning did the same. Translator, Editor. The hospital was currently bustling with activity. It seemed everyone was watching a live broadcast of the Fei Tian Awards. Tang Jingxian laid on the hospital bed and couldn't help but sigh. Sister 3 was born to act her entire life. What do you mean by Sister 3 was born to act? What can't she do? That's because once she sets her mind on something, she will move forward bravely and never look back, Su Qingyan said as she sat beside him. Now that I think about it, I remember seeing your sister when we were young. At that time, she hadn't even left the Tang family yet. Look at how domineering your sister is. How come when it comes to you, you always get hurt because of a woman? I think it's worth it. Tang Jingxian laughed. Is there something wrong with your brain? For a woman like that? As if it's worth it. After hearing Su Qingyan's words, Tang Jingxian let out a laugh. You better remember everything you've said during this period of time. Do you think I'm afraid of you? It's worth it. If I say it's worth it, then it's worth it. Su Qingyan glared at Tang Jingxian and shook her head in disappointment. She then bent over and started peeling an apple. I can't be bothered with you. At this time, Song Yenshu suddenly appeared in the hospital room. Su Qingyan lifted her head and stood up to leave. But Tang Jingxian held her back and gestured for her to be quiet. You're here again. As your ex-manager, this is my last bit of friendship. I heard that I got hurt because of you.
How come I didn't know about this?
Tang Jingxian lifted his head and questioned Song Yenshu. Chapter 593. As soon as Su Qingyan heard this, she froze. What did he mean? Didn't they say that Tang Jingxian got hurt because of Song Yenshu? Song Yenshu lowered her head and laughed as her shoulders trembled uncontrollably. She then lifted her head and replied, I was just joking. How could someone believe me? Did Miss Su really think so? According to Miss Su's intelligence, I don't think you would believe everything that someone says. Are you really going to stay by Jingshuan's side like this? That is between the two of us, Tang Jingxian replied coldly. Don't tell me. You still haven't told her how you got hurt? Song Yenshu looked at Su Qingyan with ridicule. Do you want me to tell her?
What do you mean by that?
Su Qingyan immediately stood up with a serious look on her face. What do I mean? What I mean is, the person that hurt Tang Jingxian was your jerk of a father, Song Yenshu replied. You stabbed him and injured him. Yet he ran out to buy you something even though he was injured. Some things are laughable. Tang Jingxian, it seems, you're destined to not be understood by women. No matter what you do, it's a waste of energy. After hearing Song Yenshu's words, Su Qingyan froze. As she thought back to what Tang Jingxian had just said, she suddenly realized that the person that Tang Jingxian had been talking about was her. It was her, and not Song Yenshu. What, are you surprised? Song Yenshu sneered as her voice turned colder. Su Qingyan, if you truly cared about Jingxian, I would not be here. Unfortunately, you don't. The way you treat your violent father, don't you have the slightest sense of safety? If Jingxian didn't follow you and protect you, you would probably be a corpse by now. How close could your relationship be? To be honest, it's not convincing at all. You are the old me. You don't care about his concern at all, Song Yenshu said as she pointed to Tang Jingxian. Song Yenshu said as she pointed to Tang Jingxian. She then turned to look at Tang Jingxian. So, I don't see how you are worth it. Su Qingyan was suddenly speechless because of Song Yanshu's words. Even though Song Yanshu had a bad heart, every word she said hit the nail on the head. Are you admitting it? You and I are the same. We both have a terrible impression of the person lying on the ground. That's enough. Tang Jingxian interrupted in seriousness. I know you don't want to see me. Song Yanshu suddenly became emotional, but, Tang Jingxian, you need to be fair. If my opponent is also an ungrateful person, then why won't you choose to be with me? At least, I can understand you now. At this moment, Tang Jingxian chose to remain silent. After a long time, he murmured, I did all of this willingly. Sometimes, you're really pitiful when you think about it. Tang Jingxian, you really won't be able to meet someone who loves you and who loves you back. After speaking, Song Yanshu glared at Su Qingyan. I sincerely hope you become the next me. After speaking, Song Yanshu turned and left the room, leaving the couple in an awkward silence. Afterwards, Su Qingyan moved closer to Tang Jingshuan's bed. Why didn't you tell me earlier? There's nothing much to tell, Tang Jingxian replied with a smile. I just happened to see your father following you that day. As a woman, you couldn't possibly have the strength to resist. In that case, why did you force yourself to buy food for me after you were injured? Su Qingyan continued to ask. Was it because I wanted to eat? Tang Jingxian, are you stupid? It's not as serious as you think, Tang Jingxian replied in seriousness. I don't think I can change my bad habit of being a saint. Su Qingyan stared at Tang Jingxian without another word. After staring at each other for a while, Su Qingyan walked out of the room. When she returned, her eyes were red. It was obvious that she had been crying. Tang Jingxian smiled helplessly. In a situation like that, even a friend would sit back and watch. It really wasn't much. Before Tang Jingxian could finish a sentence, Su Qingyan suddenly pounced on him and wrapped her arms around his waist. She then buried her face into his chest. I don't care anymore. I've decided to repay you with my body. After hearing this, Tang Jingxian let out a laugh. If you want to repay me with your body, you should first see if I want it or not. After all, I am the most eligible bachelor in the world. Plus, Qingyan, I did all of this out of my own free will. You don't need to do this. Su Qingyan predicted that he would say this, so she hugged him even tighter. You are the first and only person in this world that is willing to get injured because of me. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. Su Qingyan thought to herself. Let me take a look at your wound. I heard that when you were injured because of Song Yanshu, why didn't you take a look at my wound? You're being treated differently. Tang Jingxian reached out his hand to stop Su Qingyan. Su Qingyan insisted on seeing it, so Tang Jingxian had no choice but to remove his shirt and reveal his bandaged abdomen. As soon as Su Qingyan saw it, she felt like the wound was on her own body. It was itchy and painful. Tang Jingxian was injured because of her. He had left a scar on his body, so she needed to take responsibility. Just like how Tang Jingxian had left a mark on her body, a mark that belonged to her. So, Su Qingyan swore to herself that from now on, she would never let Tang Jingxian suffer a single bit of harm because of her. What's with the expression on your face? I don't need you to sacrifice your life for me. Su Qingyan quietly helped Tang Jingxian adjust his shirt. After standing up, she asked, Where is Su Zhenqing? He's on a run. Tang Jingxian replied, Find him and kill him. Su Qingyan gritted her teeth. Get some rest first. Where are you going? Tang Jingxian immediately grabbed onto Su Qingyan. I'm going to catch the culprit. After speaking, Su Qingyan lowered her head and left the room. Tang Jingxian took a deep breath and shook his head helplessly as he once again sat up. He was still injured. Couldn't she just let him rest in peace? Actually, the reason why Su Qingyan said she was going to catch the culprit was because she was the chairwoman of Su Corps and Su Zhenqing had been in the company for many years. He had a lot of subordinates, so she thought she might be able to find some clues. Of course, she wasn't stupid. She couldn't directly ask who had seen Su Zhenqing. So, She instructed her secretary to install a camera in the meeting room and notify the higher-ups and shareholders for an emergency meeting. It was actually quite simple. She wanted to tell the shareholders that Elder Sue had never transferred the Sue household to her. She was simply angry at the way Father Sue had treated her, so she pretended that she wanted to find her father and reunite with him. Using the house as bait, she wanted to see how the shareholders would react. Su Qingyan was indeed unable to control her emotions at times, but it didn't mean that she was stupid. Now, Tang Jingxian belonged to her. She was going to find the jerk and get revenge for Tang Jingxian. Chapter 594. Tang Jingxian once again arrived at Su Court with his injuries. As soon as he entered the front desk, the receptionist was stunned. "I'm looking for Director Su. Has she returned?" "Director Su is currently in a meeting," the receptionist said as she pointed to the elevator. "Mr. Tang, why don't you wait for a moment? Let me make a phone call to the CEO's office." "No need, just bring me up. I will wait for her in the office." Based on my relationship with her, is there anything you need to worry about?" Tang Jingxian asked gently and patiently. The receptionist froze for a few seconds like she was struggling internally. A moment later, she nodded her head. "Okay then. Mr. Tang, please follow me." Tang Jingxian was worried that Su Qingyan would act recklessly. But, to his surprise, as he entered the office, Su Qingyan was in the middle of a serious discussion with a few police officers. Although Hai Rui had already handled the matter in secret, Su Qingyan still officially reported it to the police. "Are you crazy? You're injured." As soon as Su Qingyan saw Tang Jingxian, she immediately helped him sit down on the sofa. "I was worried that after you found Su Zhenqing, you would challenge him to a duel. Didn't I already call the police?" Su Qingyan glared at him before she called for her secretary. "I'll get her to take you back to the hospital." "I'm fine. Even if I go to the hospital, I'll just lie down and not move around. You guys can continue talking." Tang Jingxian had no intention of moving. After all, Su Qingyan's office was luxuriously decorated and much more comfortable than the hospital. Su Qingyan couldn't do anything to him. All she could do was sigh and instruct her secretary to take care of Tang Jingxian before she returned to the police officers. "Su Zhenqing doesn't have a good relationship with my grandfather, so there's no way he would go back and ask for help. As for the names of his friends, I've already written them down. Just a moment ago, I called for a meeting and released a smokescreen to make Su Zhenqing think that the Su household is still under his name. So, he will definitely find someone to confirm it or contact the staff of Su Court." After the meeting ended, I received a phone call from each of these people. I suspect one of them tipped him off. Send someone to keep an eye on these people. I'm sure they will find something. When Su Qingyan was dealing with important matters, she actually looked like a domineering CEO. She did things swiftly and decisively, clean and efficient. "Thank you, Miss Su, for providing us with this information. You have done us a great favor," the police officer thanked Su Qingyan. "Now that we're done talking about business, there's something private I want to talk about." "How did you do it? How did you hide such a big thing from me?" Su Zhenqing's biological daughter. "Even if we don't have a good relationship, I'm still the person who understands him the most in this world. Have you never thought of asking for my help?" The police couldn't help but look at Tang Jingxian. "We were entrusted by someone who knew that Miss Su was actually a heroine." The police couldn't help but laugh. "All right, let's call it a day. Let's keep in touch." After speaking, the police left the office. Meanwhile, Su Qingyan crossed her arms and looked at Tang Jingxian. "In your eyes, am I so weak that I can only endure being bullied? At the very least, you couldn't resist Yilan in the past, but my abilities don't lose to others." Su Qingyan rubbed her neck. After being provoked by Tang Jingxian's straightforward words, she looked a little embarrassed. "Let's go. I'll take you back to the hospital. Can't you stop running around?" After witnessing Chairman Su's abilities, "I naturally won't run around," Tang Jingxian laughed. "You go do what you need to do. I'll return to the hospital on my own." "Don't talk nonsense. Listen to me." After speaking, Su Qingyan walked over and helped Tang Jingxian out of the building. However, as soon as she saw the bandage around Tang Jingshuan's abdomen turn red, she made up her mind. After Tang Jingxian fell asleep from exhaustion, Su Qingyan instructed her secretary to arrange for her to get a tattoo. That's right, a tattoo. She wanted to experience the feeling of a knife slicing across her abdomen. Miss Su, what kind of tattoo would you like? The cool-looking tattoo artist asked Su Qingyan. As soon as Su Qingyan sat down on the sofa, Tang Jingshuan's handsome face immediately appeared in her mind. He was actually quite silly and warm at the same time. Even though he had suffered so much, he still had the courage to give and the courage to love. So, Su Qingyan immediately responded, I'll get a tattoo of a dog. In that case, does Miss Su have any special requests for this dog? The tattoo artist asked. Is it possible to incorporate the word Xian into the tattoo? In this lifetime, she had already decided that Tang Jingxian belonged to her. So, tattooing Tang Jingshuan's name shouldn't be too much, right? The tattoo artist froze for a few seconds before she lifted her head and smiled. Of course. However, the person with the word Xian was not going to be happy to see the dog. In that case, let's do it. After saying these words, Su Qingyan felt her head heat up. She calmed down and thought about it carefully. If she were to tattoo Tang Jingshuan's name on her body like this, would Tang Jingxian laugh at her? But, since she had already decided to follow Tang Jingxian, there was no point in hesitating. Once she had made a decision, she shouldn't go back on it. In reality, Su Qingyan was a person that couldn't take any stimulation. Because she had been hurt too much since she was young, she especially treasured the kindness that others gave her. As long as someone was willing to do anything for her, she would do anything for them. Especially since Tang Jingxian had suffered such a serious injury because of her. Miss Su, it's time to disinfect the tattoo. Hearing the tattoo artist's reminder, Su Qingyan pulled out her phone and gave Song Yenshu a phone call. You're wrong. We are not the same type of people. The reason why I'm so slow is because I don't understand that Jingshuan's kindness to me and your lack of appreciation are two completely different things. Really? From now on, he belongs to me. Su Qingyan gathered her courage and declared her ownership of Song Yenshu. Su Qingyan gathered her courage and declared her sovereignty over Song Yenshu. I will take good care of him. Song Yenshu, there's nothing else for you to do. From now on, please don't appear in front of Jingxian for no reason. Next time, I won't be so polite. On the other side of the phone, Song Yenshu remained silent for a long time. In reality, she had gone to the hospital today to let Su Qingyan know how much Tang Jingxian had sacrificed for her. If Su Qingyan cherished Tang Jingxian, then she would completely give up. Completely and utterly. I'm drinking. Do you want a glass? On the other side of the phone, Song Yenshu was drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Su Qingyan, I'm actually quite envious of you. By the way, do you mind what happened between the two of us that night? I do, Su Qingyan replied. But a hero doesn't come from where he came from. It's all in the past. I hope you can do it. Otherwise, I will do whatever it takes to get him back. After speaking, Song Yenshu hung up the phone. No, she smashed the phone. She originally held onto a sliver of hope that Su Qingyan would be like her and let Tang Jingxian down. But let's see how far Su Qingyan could go. After all, she had already let go of him. Would Tongning let her go? Part of the reason why she gave up on Tang Jingxian was because she was afraid of Tongning's revenge. Chapter 595. Over the past few days, the headlines of the entertainment industry were dominated by the video of Tongning and her audition at the Fei Tian Awards. At the same time, news about Tongning's past was also dug up, and the media continued to hype it up. However, apart from responding to the news on the night of the Fei Tian Awards, the 6-month pregnant Tongning once again disappeared from the public eye after leaving the hotel. But she wasn't completely focused on her pregnancy. Instead, she was focused on observing one person. And this person was Tang Xian. Tang Xian continued to do things her own way. She used fake money to scam people. Sometimes, when she was exposed, she would use her identity as a pregnant woman to avoid responsibility. Of course, this was because she had never met someone more shameless than her. The people that Lu Che sent to keep an eye on Tang Xian never slacked off. But when they saw Tang Xian fall to such a state, they couldn't help but mock her. If the madam didn't want her to stay for a few more days, I would have already made a move on her. I know, right? All she does is scam the elderly and children. She doesn't even do anything for the sake of the child in her stomach. Every time Tang Xian went out to scam, the two young men were the ones who returned the money to the elderly and children. But this time, Tang Xian wasn't so lucky. She went to a small supermarket. The owner of the supermarket was also a pregnant woman. In fact, she was already 9 months pregnant. As young people weren't easy to trick, Tang Xian simply threw the money to the woman, grabbed her things, and left. While the woman was counting her belongings, she quickened her pace. The pregnant woman was originally curious as to why Tang Xian was in such a hurry to leave. So, as soon as she realized the money was fake, she immediately chased after her. "Don't go. Your money is fake. Don't go." Tang Xian was surrounded by the neighbors of the small supermarket, blocking her way. It didn't take long for the pregnant woman to catch up and grab onto Tang Xian's sleeve. "The money you gave me is fake. You're lying." "I obviously gave you real money," Tang Xian immediately retorted. "I know you're all in cahoots and trying to scam me, but I really didn't." After such a long period of polishing, Tang Xian's acting skills had reached perfection. There are surveillance cameras in the supermarket. If you don't believe me, we can go and check. The pregnant woman grabbed onto Tang Xian as she pointed in the direction of the supermarket. "If it was just a few dozen dollars, I wouldn't mind. After all, I'm pregnant, so I can't do this. But this money is for half a day's medical expenses.
I can't just give it to you like this."
Let go. Your health has nothing to do with me." Tang Xian pushed the pregnant woman aside. Because of her strength, the pregnant woman almost fell to the ground. Luckily, the pregnant woman's husband caught her from behind, so they didn't get hurt. "It's fine that you gave me fake money, but you actually dared to hurt my wife?" A mighty and strong man dressed in professional sportswear, with slender limbs and muscles all over his body. Seeing how strong the other party was, Tang Xian couldn't help but feel a little guilty. "It's not me." Still trying to deny it? It was obviously this woman. One of the onlookers pointed out Tang Xian. Tang Xian had nowhere to run and was being watched by everyone. So, she once again decided to use the child in her stomach to escape. "What do you want?" "I'm pregnant. You can't touch me." "My wife is also pregnant. Why haven't you thought about letting her go?" The man glared at Tang Xian. In the end, he grabbed onto Tang Xian's shirt. "Scum like you should be cleaned up." After speaking, the man waved his hand and Tang Xian fell to the ground. As a result, her stomach received a heavy blow. "Someone hit a woman! Someone hit a woman!" Tang Xian screamed in excitement. It turned out, even a rich heiress would throw a tantrum in the streets and be tainted with a vulgar smell. Seeing this, everyone burst into laughter. "Serves you right." At first, Tang Xian did not notice anything wrong with her body. But a moment later, someone finally noticed the blood on her body. "Look, it's blood. Is she going to have a miscarriage?" "I didn't see anything. Everyone can leave." Even though they saw Tang Xian having a miscarriage, no one stepped forward to help her. The reason was simple. Since she was trying to scam someone, it was also possible that she was trying to scam someone. So, who would show sympathy to a scammer? "Help me. Everyone help me." Tang Xian slowly began to feel the pain. But the crowd quickly dispersed. In this emergency, not a single person was willing to lend her a helping hand. "It hurts." Tang Xian lay on the ground in pain as her vision began to blur. But even though there were so many people around, no one was willing to look at her. They all looked at her with an expression that said she deserved it. In fact, no one was willing to call the ambulance. As Tang Xian's consciousness began to fade, the two men that had been following her all this time finally appeared. One was on the phone while the other helped her up from the ground. Because she had received help, Tang Xian felt unusually warm, so she closed her eyes with a heavy heart. Was it warmth? Tang Xian had no idea what kind of hell was waiting for her. Outside the delivery room of the city hospital, Elder Tang rushed over to the hospital as soon as he heard that Tang Xian and her son were in danger. At this time, Tang Xian had just finished her tests and was about to be sent into the delivery room. Tang Xian lay in bed and saw her grandfather standing in front of her. She couldn't help but grab onto his hand. "Grandfather, please help me. I'm in pain." "Don't worry, Xiao Xian. The doctor will help you," Elder Tang comforted gently. "This is my little great-grandson. He will definitely be fine." As soon as she saw Elder Tang, Tang Xian felt like she had returned home. So, she closed her eyes peacefully. But did she really return home? During the delivery process, due to external pressure, the child was born. So, Tang Xian's delivery did not go smoothly. There were a few times when she almost fainted from the pain. But after an entire 3 hours, the child in Tang Xian's stomach showed no signs of coming out. In the end, the doctor had no choice but to step out of the room and ask Elder Tang, "With the current situation, the pregnant woman cannot undergo a C-section. We can only try our best. However, the family needs to sign a form. Do you want to keep the mother or the child?" Hearing this, Elder Tang closed his eyes and took a deep breath. But a moment later, a single word came out of his mouth. The doctor was shocked, but he did not say much. He simply grabbed the form that Elder Tang had signed and returned to the delivery room.
Child.
This was Elder Tang's response. He said child. Chapter 596. The doctor was quite surprised by Elder Tang's decision. It was rare for a grandfather to be so heartless towards his own granddaughter. But this was the family's choice. The doctor did not need to be held responsible. All they needed to do was try their best to save Tang Xian and her son. Above all, it was hard for her to imagine how deep the grudge between the grandfather and granddaughter was for him to say something like this. Because she had no idea how hateful Tang Xian was. After another half an hour of anxious waiting, Xia Yuling finally arrived at the hospital from Tangkor and asked about Tang Xian's current situation. "Is she still not out yet?" Elder Tang sat in his chair in deep thought. After quite some time, he finally nodded his head. "It's possible she won't be able to come out." "Father." Xia Yuling looked at Elder Tang in surprise. She couldn't believe that Elder Tang could actually be so heartless towards Tang Xian. Sins committed by heaven can be forgiven, but sins committed by oneself cannot be avoided. As soon as Elder Tang finished speaking, the automatic doors of the operating theater slowly opened. The doctor immediately stepped out and said to Elder Tang and Xia Yuling it was a close call but no harm. "Don't worry, both mother and child are safe. However, the child is only 7 months old, so he can only stay in an incubator for now. After the nurse has taken care of him, he can be seen in the sterile room." "Thank you, nurse." Mother's body is a little weak. She needs to take care of her nutrition in the later stages. Nurse, take her back to her room first. After hearing this, Elder Tang remained expressionless. To be exact, he forced himself not to care about this evil woman. "Father, do you want to go see Tang Xian?" "No need. Xiao Ning will be here in a moment. I want to go see my great-grandson first." Elder Tang had no intention of giving Tang Xian a chance. After all, she had done a lot of evil and had done a lot of bad things. Xia Yuling nodded her head. Since Tongning was coming, it meant she was going to settle the score with Tang Xian. So, Xia Yuling did not bother with the woman in the room as she quietly followed behind Elder Tang. Since the child was a descendant of the Tang family, she wasn't going to mistreat him. But she wasn't going to let him have any contact with Tang Xian. After giving birth, Tang Xian fell into a deep sleep out of exhaustion. When she opened her eyes again, it was already 2 hours later. However, the first person she saw when she woke up wasn't a doctor, nurse, or Elder Tang. Instead, it was the person standing by the window. She was none other than Tongning. After Tang Xian saw Tongning clearly, She wanted to say something, but her throat was dry, and she couldn't make a sound. Are you awake? She gave birth to a boy, but his condition isn't good. He is currently in an incubator. Tang Xian glared at Tongning with hatred as she struggled to get up. However, she could feel the pain from her lower body, causing her to fall back down. Tongning, stop acting. Why are you here? Nothing special. I'm just here to settle some old scores with you. By the way, Grandpa has already transferred the child to another hospital. What do you mean? Tang Xian asked nervously. What I mean is, Grandpa has already taken your child away. Don't ever dream of seeing your child again, Tongning said in a low voice. Actually, I don't have any special gift to give you. I'm simply giving you an eye for an eye from now on. You won't be able to have another child. Tang Xian froze. After quite some time, she finally understood what Tongning had said. You removed it, that's right. Since you enjoy removing other people's uteruses so much, you should have a taste of it, Tongning replied. Just as Tang Xian struggled to get up, a nurse suddenly knocked on the door and entered. She then handed Tongning a list of expenses. Mrs. Mo, this is the expenses that Miss Tang has incurred during her stay in the hospital. Please. Tongning looked down at the stack of documents in the nurse's hands and smiled. I'm not the one that gave birth. The nurse was a little surprised, not understanding what Tongning meant. Ask her for it. Tongning gestured to the nurse with her chin. She had asked the wrong person. Tang Xian's expression changed as she clenched her fists tightly. After quite some time, she finally said, I have no money. I have no money. I am just a pauper, Tang Xian repeated. She then looked at Tongning with tears in her eyes. Must you be so ruthless? Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the nurse quickly said, You two should discuss it first. There's nothing to discuss. Ask her for it. Tang Xian's biggest fear was being humiliated in front of Tongning. So, she lifted the blanket and sat up. If worst comes to worst, I'll leave the hospital right now. The nurse looked at Tongning awkwardly. However, she did not notice that Tang Xian had already rolled off the bed. The nurse immediately stretched out her arms to help her up. Hurry and get up. I won't rush you anymore. Tang Xian lay on the floor and looked up at Tongning with a mocking smile. Are you satisfied now? Satisfied? First, you contacted the hospital to remove my uterus. Then you sold information to Yilan and almost caused me to lose my life. Do you think I'm satisfied with your actions? Tongning asked coldly. After hearing Tongning's words, the nurse couldn't help but sigh. Everything that had happened was on the entertainment news and couldn't be faked. So, she knew that she shouldn't sympathize with Tang Xian. Perhaps you can work at the hospital to pay off your debt. I think the position of a cleaner is perfect for you. Tang Xian, you can no longer be considered a woman. From now on, you will never be able to find happiness. So from today onwards, we are even. Even? Tang Xian lay on the floor and laughed. You've won everything, and I've got nothing. How is this even? The winner takes all. From now on, you will watch as I get better and reach the top of the entertainment industry. After speaking, Tongning gently rubbed her stomach to comfort the baby in her stomach. Afterwards, she coldly walked out of the hospital room without a trace of pity for Tang Xian. Because the cruelest part had yet to come. The nurse forced Tang Xian to take the documents to the doctor's office. At this time, Tang Xian's doctor entered the room to check on her condition. Miss Tang, I think you should take care of yourself. However, there's something that I need to tell you. During your difficult labor, I once asked your grandfather if he wanted to save the mother or the child, the doctor said as he scanned Tang Xian's expression. As the doctor spoke, he secretly scanned Tang Xian's expression. I was quite surprised by his answer. Can you guess what he said? Chapter 597. Grandfather. Yes, I still have grandfather. Tang Xian seemed to have found her last hope as she looked at Tang Xian with a glimmer of hope. Grandfather will definitely not sit idly by. I need to go look for him. Miss Tang, calm down, the doctor said as he held onto Tang Xian's shoulder. Don't be silly. Your grandfather would never care about you. Nonsense. Did you know? While you were in labor, I went to the delivery room to get your grandfather to sign the consent form. Guess what he told me? If you were to come across any danger during the operation, if only one of you could be saved, I asked him what he would do. In the end what? Tang Xian lifted her head and asked, what did he say? He said, save the child. The doctor replied in seriousness. Your grandfather doesn't care if you live or die. He simply wants the child. Otherwise, why would he leave with the child right after you gave birth without even taking a glance at you? Save the child. Tang Xian could no longer listen to anything else. All she could think of was the word save the child. That's impossible. Grandfather would never say that. It's impossible. All the nurses heard it. He is my grandfather. How could he treat his own granddaughter like this?
Does he not care if I live or die?
Tang Xian clutched onto the blanket as she was on the verge of breaking down. I am his own granddaughter. His own granddaughter. Why would he want me to die? The doctor held onto Tang Xian's shoulder tightly. I'm also surprised. He is your grandfather, yet he doesn't care about your life and wants us to do everything we can to save the child in your stomach. As for you, if you die, then so be it. Tang Xian did not notice anything was wrong. After hearing the doctor's words, she grabbed onto a glass of water from the bedside table and threw it on the floor. You all want me to die.
You all want me to die.
Seeing Tang Xian lose control, the doctor looked at her with ridicule. After straightening his white coat, he turned around and left the room. Roughly 5 minutes later, a tall and skinny nurse entered the room with 2 bodyguards behind her. Miss Tang, please pay the hospital fees. Otherwise, we will be in a difficult position. I told you, I have no money. I have no money. Tang Xian yelled. If you want money, why don't you rob a bank? Since that's the case, we can only take forceful action. After speaking, the nurse gestured for the 2 bodyguards to grab onto Tang Xian's arms and throw her out of the room. Miss Tang, you have no money. Please go home and rest. Tang Xian had just given birth and was thrown out of the ward. Naturally, she was weak. Your hospital is not afraid of being struck by lightning for doing this. Sorry, Miss Tang, we are simply following the rules. Plus, when it comes to being struck by lightning, you will be the first to be struck by lightning. Let's go. In reality, this revenge was actually very simple. It wasn't Tang Ning's doing, it was Mo Ting who was backing her up. It had to be simple, violent, and get the job done in one go. To make matters worse, the hospital quickly arranged for a new patient to stay in Tang Xian's room. It was as if she really didn't exist. Tang Xian lay on the ground. It wasn't easy for her to hold onto the wall as she stood up. However, after taking a few steps, she fainted. She had nothing left for a long time, and this time, she had completely lost everything. Especially when she thought of the old master's words about protecting the young. Protect the young. Hey, isn't that the heiress of Tangkor? Didn't I hear she used to be so glamorous? How did she end up in this state? What other reason could there be? It must be because she has a bad character and has done a lot of despicable things. I heard she gave birth to a son. I wonder what her son will think of her as his mother. You might not know this, but the Tang family have no intention of letting her have contact with her child again. I heard she can't even afford to see a doctor, and no one in the Tang family cares about her. She really does get what she deserves. The nurses at the front desk started gossiping about Tang Xian out of boredom. However, as soon as they turned around, Tang Xian appeared behind them. They hurriedly coughed as a trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. Especially when they saw Tang Xian's hateful gaze, they quickly hugged the medical reports and walked away. Tang Xian had nowhere to go and had just given birth. All she could do was endure the pain and walk barefoot out of the hospital. At this time, an elegant woman dressed in a blue coat walked past the outpatient department. As soon as she saw Tang Xian walk out of the inpatient department, she immediately tugged at the nurse beside her and asked, "This patient doesn't even have shoes on." The nurse glanced at Tang Xian and replied, "Madam, someone like her deserves it. Don't worry about her." Her family won't even ask about her.
Why is that?
No matter what, we can't let someone walk the streets like this. After speaking, the kind-hearted woman chased after Tang Xian. She then pulled out some money from her handbag and handed it to Tang Xian. Child, take this money and buy yourself a pair of shoes before you leave. Tang Xian looked at the middle-aged woman and felt she looked a little familiar. She felt like she had seen her somewhere before, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. But, faced with this cup of help, Tang Xian simply shook her head. No need. There will definitely be despair in life, but you shouldn't give up on yourself. Tang Xian once again pushed the middle-aged woman's hand away as she endured the pain and walked faster. As soon as she saw a speeding car on the road, she did not hesitate and ran into it. Even if she died, she was going to make sure Tang Ning was labeled as the person who forced her own sister to die. Even if she died, she was going to drag Tang Ning down with her. Everyone was shocked, especially the middle-aged woman who reached out to help Tang Xian a moment ago. Seeing Tang Xian being sent flying, she immediately covered her mouth in shock. Oh God! The hospital had no choice but to admit Tang Xian again. However, the doctor was hesitant about whether to give her expensive medication. Afterwards, the middle-aged woman pointed at the doctor and scolded, "Saving a life is more important right now. I will pay for this woman's treatment." As the middle-aged woman had other matters to attend to, she handed over the money and left the hospital. However, as she passed by a newspaper stand, she saw the woman she had just tried to persuade appear on the newspaper. Of course, there was another woman on the newspaper as well.
Tang Ning.
After seeing the news, she finally understood. So, they are sisters. With this thought, the middle-aged woman's expression darkened. At this time, she pulled out her phone and gave her husband a phone call. "How many days until you arrive in Beijing?" "I'll come as soon as I've dealt with my business." The man replied. "There's something I want to ask you. Is Mo Ting's wife called Tang Ning?" "Of course. Once you arrive in Beijing, you will know that she is very famous." Chapter 598. She is indeed famous. Mother Mo's eyes flashed with displeasure. "Today, I went to the hospital to see the old professor. On the way there, I came across something unbelievable. Old Mo, I can't wait to go see Tang Ning." "I knew you couldn't wait to see your daughter-in-law. I'll hang up first. I'll give Mo Ting a phone call." After hanging up the phone, Mother Mo pulled up Mo Ting's number. She thought she no longer had any expectations for her daughter-in-law, but at least she couldn't ignore her own family. But after seeing the way Tang Ning treated Tang Xian, she felt that the person that treated her sister in this way wouldn't treat the people around them well. As a result, Mother Mo's first impression of Tang Ning was extremely bad. Mother Mo's name was Hua Wenfeng. She worked as a bioengineer and spent most of her time with Father Mo at a research facility overseas. In reality, neither of them liked the fact that Mo Ting had inherited Elder Mo's legacy and become the big boss of the entertainment industry. So, the two of them were both familiar with and hated the entertainment industry. Previously, Mo Ting refused to get married. But, because of their work, they did not restrict Mo Ting and left everything up to Elder Mo to handle. So, as soon as the couple found out that Mo Ting was getting married, they were overjoyed. After all, as his mother, she understood Mo Ting's personality and knew that no one could force him to do anything. But it wasn't easy for them to rush back to Beijing before their daughter-in-law gave birth. But who would have thought on their first day they would bump into Tang Xian at the hospital? "Son, Mom has returned to Beijing and is currently at the hospital. Can you send someone to pick me up?" "Uh-huh," Mo Ting responded calmly. Afterwards, Mo Ting stood up from his office chair and said to Lu Che, "If you have something to do in the afternoon, look for Fang Yu." "Yes, President." Mo Ting drove straight home. As soon as he entered the living room, he found Tang Ning reading a script. He sat down beside her and said, "Ning, go get changed. Let's go pick up your mother-in-law."
Huh?
Tang Ning was a little surprised. She didn't understand what Mo Ting meant. "Mom has just returned from overseas," Mo Ting replied gently. "But you don't need to be nervous. Just be yourself. I will be here if anything happens. Tongning understood Emo Ting's personality well, so she smiled. Your mother is naturally my mother. I will respect her. No one is more important than you. Emo Ting's tone turned serious after hearing Tongning's words. Tongning nodded her head. From Emo Ting's attitude, she could tell she had already prepared herself. Emo Ting's mother may not be someone easy to deal with. However, deep down, she knew that Emo Ting was on her side. This was something that would never change. Afterwards, the couple headed to the hospital where Hua Wenfeng was staying. But as soon as Hua Wenfeng saw Tongning, she did not think she looked evil. In fact, she looked quiet and sincere. It was hard to imagine how she had climbed from a has-been model to where she was today. Was she the one who did all those things to deal with others?
Mom.
Emo Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning as he approached Hua Wenfeng and formally introduced her. This is my wife, Tongning.
I know.
Hello, Xiaoning. Hua Wenfeng maintained her good manners as she smiled and shook Tongning's hand. As she looked at her bulging stomach, she temporarily let go of her suspicions. Pregnancy must have been tough, right? With Ting taking care of me, it wasn't tough at all. That's good. Let's get in the car first. Hua Wenfeng understood that the couple had a special status. Even if she wanted to understand Tongning, she couldn't do it without hurting the interests of her son and daughter-in-law. So, she helped Emo Ting back into the car. But, as soon as they got in the car, Hua Wenfeng asked the question in her mind. I read in the newspaper that your sister is also staying at this hospital. She even got into an accident today. Do you want to go see her? Hearing Hua Wenfeng's question, Tongning froze. She could guess that Hua Wenfeng had already seen something and was prejudiced by her first impression. Your grandson and daughter-in-law almost died at her hands twice.
There's no need to visit them.
Emo Ting's voice was cold and decisive as he directly dispelled Hua Wenfeng's thoughts. Let's go then. Hua Wenfeng did not mind Emo Ting's attitude. However, on the way home, the trio did not have anything in common to talk about. All Tongning could say was that Emo Ting and Hua Wenfeng were 70% similar. From the looks of it, Hua Wenfeng must have had a lot of suitors when she was younger. Even at her age, she still had an oval face, without a single wrinkle. Plus, she had elegant taste in clothes. So, like Emo Ting, Mother Emo gave off an air of nobility that no one could look up to.
Most importantly, she was dignified.
It didn't take long before the trio arrived home. As soon as Hua Wenfeng entered the living room, she grabbed onto Tongning and asked her all sorts of questions. Seeing the script on the table, she couldn't help but ask, do you still plan to act? Uh-huh, I quite like it. Tongning nodded her head in seriousness. Hua Wenfeng did not say a word as she maintained her smile. This made Tongning realize that, since Emo Ting was born to be so smart and outstanding, Mother Emo must also be very smart. She could even manage a simple expression perfectly. It seemed she had finally found a rival. What's the expected date of delivery? Around May, Tongning replied. Okay, this will be the Emo family's first grandchild. Tongning was good at observing people and was very sensitive. Although Hua Wenfeng did not show a trace of displeasure, Tongning could sense that Hua Wenfeng did not mean what she said. I won't go into too much detail about pregnant women. I'm sure you already know. But in the later stages of pregnancy, some common illnesses may appear, so you need to be careful.
Thank you, Mom.
Just like this, the couple chatted harmoniously until nighttime. But just as they lay in bed and were about to go to sleep, Tongning lifted her head and said to Emo Ting, who was hugging her, although Mom treats me very well and is very polite, I have a feeling that she has a lot of questions she wants to ask me. Okay, Emo Ting nodded. Mom is indeed difficult to deal with. Actually, if Tongning could tell, how could Emo Ting not feel it? But Ning, I don't need you to be respectful to anyone. Although she is my mother, you are still you. You don't need to make any compromises for her sake.
You can count on me.
In that case, if I want to ask you about how Mom and wife fell into the water at the same time, I'll save you. Emo Ting replied without hesitation. Because she is my father's responsibility, and you are my responsibility. My mission is to take care of you for the rest of your life. What if everyone calls you unfilial? But I'd rather be called unfilial than lose you. Mo Ting's voice sounded from above Tong Ning's head. You are my life. Chapter 599. That night, Tang Xian's suicidal act naturally attracted the attention of the media. The Tang family were indeed ruthless. Not only did they kidnap the child, they didn't even care if Tang Xian lived or died. In the eyes of the average person, rich families were filled with drama. On top of that, the Tang family had always stood out from the rest.
So,
Tang Xian's crash easily attracted the attention of the public and the last trace of sympathy they had left. Tang Xian is indeed at our hospital, but she has no way of paying for her pregnancy. Our hospital is also in a difficult position. Tang Xian did indeed have a difficult birth. But I heard that after the child was born, the Tang family took it away and never let Tang Xian see it again. I think Tang Xian deserves it. This is where Tang Xian crashed into the car. It scared a lot of people. For now, her life is not in danger, but it's hard to say. At the time, she was covered in blood.
it was a creepy sight.
Although Tang Xian is unlucky to have a descendant like her, the Tang family are too ruthless. She is, after all, her blood runs in her veins. The Tang family is a big family, yet they didn't even leave her medical fees. How heartless. Faced with a well-informed internet, there was no need for the media to respond to Tong Ning's pregnancy. After all, this was her usual tactic. But no one knew what Hua Wenfeng would think after seeing the news. Tong Ning wanted to talk to Hua Wenfeng as soon as possible. So, the next morning she woke up early. As she headed downstairs, she saw Hua Wenfeng preparing breakfast for the couple. Xiaoning, you're awake?
Mom, sit down.
You shouldn't stand for too long when you're pregnant. Hua Wenfeng immediately pulled Tong Ning to sit down. Tong Ning originally thought that Hua Wenfeng wouldn't mind. After all, Mo Ting had been in the entertainment industry for so many years. But as soon as the couple sat down, Hua Wenfeng sneaked a glance at Tong Ning. She then placed her hands on the table and asked, I've seen the news. How do you plan to resolve Tang Xian's incident? Grandfather is handling this matter. Mom, you shouldn't be asking Tong Ning. Mo Ting appeared from the study room and approached the couple. Mo Ting appeared from the study room and walked over to the couple. Plus, this is a Tang family matter. Since that's the case, I won't ask any further. Hua Wenfeng smiled at the couple before she continued to eat her breakfast. Tong Ning could tell that Hua Wenfeng was polite to her and did not show any dominance. But Tong Ning was already mentally prepared. Perhaps Hua Wenfeng had not started yet. Mom, I won't say much, but I have one thing to say. At the end of the day, you have to take the Tang family's reputation into consideration. I know, Mom. What Hua Wenfeng meant was for Tong Ning to show mercy and not kill Tang Xian. This could also show her magnanimity. But in Tong Ning's heart, forgiving Tang Xian had always been a task for God. She couldn't do it. After all, she had never been a kind person. She had never led herself down that path. Hua Wenfeng thought Tong Ning had agreed to her request, so her expression softened once again. She continued to prepare dishes for Tong Ning and Mo Ting. The breakfast was harmonious and warm. However, after breakfast, Tong Ning gave Xia Yuling a phone call from her bedroom. Mom, arrange for PR, don't let Tang Xian affect our lives again. This morning, a few paparazzi surrounded our front door. It wasn't easy for your grandfather and I to get away, Xia Yuling replied calmly. Mo Ting's mother has returned home and happened to bump into Tang Xian's matter. Xia Yuling remained silent for a few seconds before she replied. In that case, it's best to deal with this matter as soon as possible in case it leaves a bad impression on the in-laws. I'm afraid they've already left a bad impression, Tong Ning replied quietly. But, Mom, you can discuss with grandfather how to deal with this matter. You don't need to compromise with Tang Xian. Did you think I don't hate her? Xiaoning, don't worry, the Tang family isn't a normal family. We know how to deal with our family matters properly. We don't need anyone's guidance. Since the in-laws have returned, you should respect them and be considerate. Mom, I understand. Xia Yuling knew that Tongning knew what to do, so she didn't need to worry. But it was time she dealt with Tang Xian. So, Xia Yuling no longer avoided the paparazzi outside Tangkor. Instead, she directly accepted their interviews. As a famous perfume family, Tangkor has always been dedicated to serving society. But Tang Xian's matter is a family matter. It has nothing to do with the onlookers. All you see is how pitiful Tang Xian is, but you don't see us crying tears of despair for her. So, please don't use your subjective opinions to judge my family's character and intentions. Regarding Tang Xian, I would like to make a few statements. Firstly, Tang Xian once colluded with the hospital to remove Tongning's uterus. Secondly, Tang Xian once hired someone to kidnap me and try to kill me while I was overseas. Thirdly, Tang Xian knew Tongning was pregnant, so she sold this information to someone with ulterior motives. As a result, Tongning almost lost her life. Anyone who isn't a member of the Tang family would never be able to experience this pain. So, please don't judge us from a moral standpoint. We are already being very kind by not suing Tang Xian. As a family member, my father, the chairman of Tangkor, once had high hopes for his granddaughter. But what could possibly hurt an old man's heart? Why do we need to think about it? Lastly, this is Tangkor's final explanation regarding Tang Xian. Tangkor and Tang Xian no longer have anything to do with each other. So, no matter what Miss Tang Xian does, it has nothing to do with Tangkor. I also hope that everyone can speak honestly. If you come across a family member like Tang Xian that has committed so many crimes, would you still have the magnanimity to accept her? If you can't do it, then please keep your mouths shut. Xia Yuling's words were neither servile nor overbearing. She was honest. After all, Tang Xian's crimes could be counted in detail. Afterwards, Xia Yuling bowed to the media and returned to Tangkor's headquarters. She did not respond to the matter regarding Tang Xian again. She spoke honestly. Actually, Tang Xian's current fate was a result of her own actions. Previously, there were even rumors that she was using fake money to trick the elderly. How could she possibly want to return to the Tang family? She was simply trying to blackmail us. A friend of mine works at Tangkor. I heard that Tang Xian did all sorts of unsightly things to fight for the inheritance. Tangkor must have been afraid that the Tang family's bloodline would be led astray, so they took away their grandson. Chapter 600. Tang Xian removed a woman's uterus and sold information about her. How could she be a mother? If she really was a mother, she would never do something so disgusting. You may be sympathizing with Tang Xian right now, but I'm willing to bet that if the Tang family didn't take the child away, Tang Xian would have a new bargaining chip to use against them. Actually, I really want to know why people still sympathize with Tang Xian at this point. Since they thought it was just something to relieve their boredom, why not just take a look instead of attacking Tangkor and Tongning? In reality, Xia Yuling's attitude was already extremely firm. She clearly expressed that Tangkor didn't owe Tang Xian anything and that Tang Xian was no longer related to Tangkor. With the help of Hai Rui, Tang Xian's incident would automatically be suppressed and no longer be a waste of everyone's time and energy. So, Tang Xian had hurt herself for nothing. In this world, no one would ever sympathize with her actions again. At this point, she had completely become a child herding sheep. Inside the hospital room, Tang Xian had just woken up. Seeing that she was looking at the entertainment news not far away with a stiff neck, the nurse couldn't help but lower her head and say to her, "The driver who hit you has already paid for your surgery. As for the money you owe, the hospital will treat you completely and not pursue the matter. But after that, Miss Tang, please leave immediately." The so-called justice was simply because they were afraid that Tang Xian would cause more trouble. The number of paparazzi every day had already disrupted the order of the hospital. In reality, the reason why the hospital made this compromise was because they had previously received donations from Tangkor. In order to keep Tang Xian safe, The hospital made this decision after some discussion. However, even when the decision was finally approved, the hospital was still a little unwilling. They knew what kind of person Tang Xian was, yet they still wanted to treat her well. This was the same as eating a pile of shit despite knowing it was sitting in front of them. If she was a good person, they would be more than happy to help her. If a single person was capable of provoking the hatred of the entire nation, regardless of gender or age, then that person must be extremely skilled. But Tang Xian had obviously done it. Meanwhile, as Tang Xian lay in bed, her mind suddenly went blank. After quite some time, she finally whispered to the nurse, "Why didn't the driver kill me? Let the driver go. He's innocent. He's just a young man who just started his own business. You bumped into him like that, and he took out the only liquid capital in his pocket. Tang Xian, you are not the only person in this world. Don't think so highly of yourself. Everyone has to revolve around you. The difference between you and Tongning is not your looks or anything else but your heart. One more thing, I forgot to tell you. Your left leg might be a little lame in the future." After speaking, the nurse looked at Tang Xian helplessly and turned to leave the room. He was lame. Tang Xian suddenly lay in bed, crying and laughing at the same time. It seemed, every time she thought of a way to deal with Tongning, she would end up helping Tongning become better, while she would end up becoming more pitiful. "I don't want to fight anymore. I can't fight anymore. But is there anyone who can help me?" The answer, of course, was no. With this background, Tang Kor successfully escaped from Tang Xian's incident without being implicated by Tang Xian. This was because Xia Yuling was determined not to forgive anyone that hurt her family. Tongning did not ask a single question, as she quietly stayed at home to rest. Of course, Tongning wasn't sure if Hua Wenfeng was satisfied with this outcome. At this moment, the two women were sitting in the living room watching the news. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw Xia Yuling on the television, she turned to look at Tongning and asked, "Xiaoning, when can I meet with your mother?"
Mom, I'm sorry.
"I should have arranged it earlier." "It's my fault," Tongning replied humbly. When you couldn't guess what someone was thinking, the best thing to do was to retreat while the enemy advanced. By putting on an attitude that everything was her fault, she could reduce the other party's anger by half. "I'll make a phone call right now." "There's no rush." Hua Wenfeng put down the remote control in her hands and approached Tongning. "Yes, I'm currently pregnant, so there are a lot of things that I can't do personally." "That's true. Let's talk about it after the baby is born." Hua Wenfeng smiled. "Yes, I'm currently pregnant, so there are a lot of things that I can't do personally." According to Hua Wenfeng's words, Tongning had a feeling that she wanted Tongning to return and take over Tang Kor. This made Tongning feel a little uncomfortable. Although Hua Wenfeng didn't openly criticize her and Mo Ting's life, her words were full of hints. "By the way, I have a dinner appointment with an old professor from the Biology Research Institute tomorrow. He used to be Mo Ting's doctor and has taken care of him for many years. Do you have time to come with me tomorrow?" Hearing Hua Wenfeng's invitation, Tongning nodded her head without hesitation. "Of course, Mom."
Okay.
When the two flawless people exchanged blows on the surface, it was impossible to tell who was winning or losing. After all, they didn't want to give each other anything to use against them. Tongning could confide in Mo Ting, but she couldn't say a single word to Hua Wenfeng. Since ancient times, the relationship between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law had always been a difficult one. It seemed she was no exception. It didn't take long before Mo Ting returned home. Seeing the expressions on Tongning and Hua Wenfeng's faces, he could roughly guess what was going on. So, he sat down beside Tongning and wrapped his arm around her shoulder as he said to Hua Wenfeng, "Mom, since you're back, there are a few things that I need to clarify with you. I don't want to put on a show. If you have something to say, then say it. There's no need to be secretive or give hints in front of Tongning. This has never happened in our family before. The woman that I, Mo Ting, married is not for the sake of being bullied or wronged. If you need a maid or something else, I can prepare thousands of them for you. But I will not allow you to hurt Tongning. I'm not asking you to accept Tongning, but I hope you don't interfere with our lifestyle." You once said that you would pretend that you never gave birth to me. So, please pretend that you never had a daughter-in-law. Tongning originally thought that Hua Wenfeng would be angry after hearing this. But she simply smiled. Son, I gave birth to you. Of course, I understand you. Mom, it's not what you think. Chapter 601. Hua Wenfeng's gentleness made all the words Mo Ting wanted to say, but they were all stuck in his throat. I was just saying it casually. If you don't like it, I won't mention it again. Hua Wenfeng retreated in order to advance. This made Tongning realize how smart her mother-in-law was. After all, I'm already so old. I can't and shouldn't interfere in the lives of young people. I've overstepped my boundaries. Tongning did not say a word. She simply smiled at Hua Wenfeng. However, she hated the feeling of having to be so careful at home. Mo Ting glanced at Hua Wenfeng calmly. He did not say another word as he wrapped his arm around Tongning's waist. After quite some time, he finally said, Mom, I've bought another house in Hyatt. It's close to the sea. I know you and Dad like it, so I've already asked someone to prepare it. You can move in within 3 days. When that time comes, you won't have to stay in the guest room anymore. The meaning of this was already very clear, and Mo Ting wanted Hua Wenfeng to stop interfering with his and Tongning's lives. Young people have their own way of life. I understand. Fine, since your father is coming home soon, I'll move in first and won't be going overseas for a while. However, Hua Wenfeng did not show any signs of anger. In fact, she acted like she was talking about something normal. This was an eye-opener for Tongning. Perhaps she should give up her position as the #1 ninja in the world to Hua Wenfeng. Tongning didn't really like Hua Wenfeng. As long as Hua Wenfeng didn't cross the line, she would definitely respect her. However, up until now, she had yet to see Hua Wenfeng open up her heart to her. Of course, she didn't expect a mother-in-law to treat her daughter-in-law with such sincerity after meeting her for only a few days. Mom, I'm sure you won't be used to moving over on your own without any preparations. Why don't you wait for Dad to come home before moving in? Tongning said gently. Her tone contained a hint of coquettishness. What had Tongning not been through? Why would she be afraid of establishing a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship? Above all, up until now, she had yet to see any ill intentions from Hua Wenfeng. At least, she had shown concern for them, even if their relationship was a little over the line. But any relationship had to go through a process of getting used to. In this world, the only person who could understand her from the start was Mo Ting. Xiaoning, take good care of yourself. Mom will take care of you. Hua Wenfeng maintained her gentleness as an elder the entire time. So, Tongning simply nodded her head. Late at night, the couple were already lying in bed. In the midst of her drowsiness, Tongning leaned her elbow against Mo Ting's chest. Hubby, you're not asleep yet. Mo Ting turned his body slightly and hugged her even tighter. You want to ask me about Mom, right? I can't really feel her heart. It was common knowledge that Tongning was good at observing people. As long as she set her eyes on someone or experienced something small, she would be able to see through them, even though she would never expose them. But Hua Wenfeng, she couldn't even guess what she was thinking. It's my fault. I only told her about our marriage and nothing else. It's not your style to hide things. At the time, she didn't ask too much, so I had no idea that her attitude towards you would be so vague and unpredictable, Mo Ting explained gently. I know you don't like to be left in the dark, so I just want to make things clear. After Mom moves out, I will remove all the guest rooms, leaving only the master bedroom and the nursery. You can't blame her. After all, the first thing she saw was Tang Xian's suicide. It's no surprise that she would misunderstand me. So, give me some time and let me try to get closer to her, Tongning said as she leaned against Mo Ting's chest. How long has it been since you last saw your mother? The last time we met was around 4 years ago. In that case, not only does she not treat me well, she also treats you as her son. She has no idea that my Mo Ting has already become so powerful. So, let's try to let her understand us. That's more important than anything else. Actually, as long as she accepts someone, she will do her best for them. This was something that Ting understood Hua Wenfeng well. After all, she was his mother. How could she possibly be an evil person? Impossible. Tongning responded before she drifted off to sleep. So, the next morning, around 10 a.m., just as Hua Wenfeng was about to leave the house with her handbag, she ran into a well-dressed Tongning sitting on the sofa. Of course, because she was going to meet with the elders, Tongning was dressed appropriately. I'm waiting for Mom, Tongning replied humbly. Let's go then. Seeing that Tongning was quiet, Hua Wenfeng immediately ran over to help her up. Soon, the two women arrived at the entrance of the hospital. The hospital in front of them was none other than the hospital that Tang Xian was currently recovering at. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw the hospital entrance, she was reminded of the scene of Tang Xian's car accident. So, a chill ran down her spine. This was the simplest and most direct reason for her to reject Tongning. Of course, she wasn't like the people outside who would directly embarrass Tongning. But if she was asked to accept Tongning immediately, she would feel extremely uncomfortable. Mom, I know that as soon as you returned to China, you saw the Tang family's news and personally witnessed Tang Xian's incident. Because of their identities, the two did not directly appear at the hospital. Instead, they waited in the car. Meanwhile, Hua Wenfeng never expected that Tongning would be so direct. I have to admit, when it came to dealing with Tang Xian, I spared no effort. I did indeed hate her. I endured for over 20 years, but in the end, I was hurt by her. Most importantly, she tried to hurt my and Ting's child. This is the most unforgivable thing I can do. I don't expect you to understand. I simply want you to be fair. Not everyone who is standing and smiling is free from pain. She directly hurt me and our child, but I still let her off the hook. But I can't let Tang Xian go. Hua Wenfeng never expected Tongning to say such heartfelt words. After a long silence, so long that Tongning thought she wouldn't respond, she suddenly replied, I'm afraid that if you can be so ruthless towards your sister, what about your other family members? What about Ting's family? Mom, time truly reveals a person's heart. Actually, I already knew that you were a famous model. But I had no idea that you ended up becoming an actress, Hua Wenfeng explained. What's wrong with being an actress? Tongning suddenly grasped the key point in Hua Wenfeng's words. Actress. But Ting was the king of the entertainment industry, and Elder Mo was a famous actor. Yet, Hua Wenfeng didn't seem to have much of a reaction. Chapter 602. Being an actress has never been a problem, Hua Wenfeng said in a melancholic tone, but I don't like actors. Hua Wenfeng's words were too direct and too absolute. It was as if she was telling Tongning that she would never accept her. However, if it was any other woman, they would have either tried to curry favor with a man in power or directly pushed open the door to express their dissatisfaction. However, when these words were used on Tongning, it did not cause much of a change in her emotions. After quite some time, Tongning finally replied, Actually, I don't like doctors and people in the field of biotechnology either. Hua Wenfeng never expected that Tongning would throw her words back at her. In fact, her words were even more forceful and aggressive. You don't like me? That's fine, I don't necessarily like you. A surgical knife can make a person infertile. Tongning was referring to Tang Xian's scheme in the past. Not all doctors are like that. For the same reason, actors are the same, Tongning laughed. Hua Wenfeng knew that arguing with Tongning wasn't going to work, but she did not get angry. Although she felt a little uncomfortable, it wasn't to the point where she couldn't tolerate it. Have you always been this eloquent with Ting? Hua Wenfeng asked as she turned to look at Tongning. He can't stand to see me being bullied. So, he sometimes acts like a teacher and tells me that no matter who it is, as long as they attack me, I will return the favor 100-fold. Tongning's eyes darkened as her tone became a lot more stern. After all, she had approached Hua Wenfeng because she wanted to resolve the issue in her heart. But from the looks of it, Hua Wenfeng had no intention of accepting her. Actually, this wasn't something to be upset about. After all, everyone had their own choices. Plus, if Hua Wenfeng was in Hua Wenfeng's shoes and her daughter-in-law did something that she didn't like, even if she didn't interfere, she would still find it hard to accept. So, she completely understood what Hua Wenfeng was thinking. Over the years, Xiaoting has managed to expand the profession that I hate. Hua Wenfeng couldn't help but sigh. In reality, after so many years, she had already gotten used to Hai Rui's existence. But her only son, Mo Ting, had a wife who was also an actress. Actually, Xiao Ning, I'm not picking on you. It's normal that you are outstanding. Otherwise, you wouldn't have caught Mo Ting's attention. But I saw Tang Xian crash the car with my own eyes and her blood almost splashed on me. That's why I'm confused. A person has already used his life to pay for it. What else can't be forgiven? Everyone knows that you are ruthless. Those who offend you do not have a good ending. From this, it can be seen that you do not have a forgiving heart. Last night, I spent the entire night looking at your reports. Plus, I'm sure you've benefited quite a bit from Mo Ting, right? In the beginning, it's not that I didn't have any hope for you, but you're not the type of daughter-in-law I want in every aspect. So, we shouldn't make things difficult for each other. Although you and Mo Ting are married and your child is about to be born, I can't object to it. I can have my own opinions and actions. So, how we are now and how we will be in the future, as long as we can look after each other on the surface, that's about it. As for the baby after you give birth, you will definitely return to filming. So, I can take care of the baby for you, and you can focus on your career. This was equivalent to making things clear? Tongning looked at Hua Wenfeng from behind. Actually, liking someone or hating them was a simple matter. If you didn't like someone, you didn't need to force yourself to get along with them. Ting, and I have no intention of letting someone else take care of the baby. In other words, from now on, when no one else was around, the couple no longer needed to pretend to be polite. Hua Wenfeng's lips curved slightly in mockery. This was probably the only expression that Tongning had ever seen her show any emotion. In a moment, when you see the professor, don't say anything. I'll listen to Mom. Tongning looked out the window. It would be best if the couple treated each other with respect. As long as it wasn't a big deal, it wouldn't affect her. But if Hua Wenfeng had any thoughts. Soon, a short and skinny doctor wearing a white coat approached the couple's car. He knocked on the window and said to Hua Wenfeng, "Mrs. Mo, our professor would like to invite you in." "Let's go," Hua Wenfeng said as she glanced back at Tongning. Tongning remained calm the entire time. She wasn't surprised by the lack of a good relationship between her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. That was because her principle of doing things would never change. How you treat me. How I treat you. Plus, Tongning had a feeling that Hua Wenfeng had a motive for inviting her to visit the professor. After entering the hospital through the staff passageway, Tongning and Hua Wenfeng entered an old office. Sitting inside was a white-haired old man. From the looks of it, he was in his early 70s and looked at Hua Wenfeng lovingly. "Wenfeng." "Professor." Hua Wenfeng immediately stepped forward to shake the old man's hand. "I just returned from overseas and brought my daughter-in-law to visit you. As you can see, you've taken good care of Mo Ting in the past. But ever since he got married, he hasn't made a special trip to see you. So, I'm here today to apologize." The old man looked past Hua Wenfeng and glanced at Tongning before nodding his head. "Only you would think of this. How thoughtful." The office was filled with a strong smell of medicine. As a result, Tongning felt a little nauseous. Hua Wenfeng immediately said to Tongning, "Let's go out and get some fresh air." Tongning nodded her head slightly at the professor before she turned and left the office. Afterwards, Tongning headed to the bathroom. But before she could step out, she heard a conversation outside the cubicle. "Hey, let me tell you, I just overheard the professor talking to a rich woman outside his office. It seems someone has come to ask him about the gender of his child. But I didn't see which pregnant woman it was. Our professor is amazing in this aspect. If he says he's going to give birth to a son, then there's no way he's going to give birth to a daughter. But this doesn't seem too good. According to my experience, if it's the mother, then she should be accompanying the pregnant woman. If it's the husband, then it's fine. But if it's the mother-in-law and the pregnant woman isn't with them, then something is definitely fishy. Sure. I wonder which unlucky pregnant woman it is. The two women's voices weren't loud. In fact, they were accompanied by the sound of running water. But every word was clearly heard by Tongning. What other pregnant woman could it be? Apart from Tongning, who else could it be? Of course, Tongning didn't know if it was a good or bad thing that Hua Wenfeng found out about the gender of her child. But her actions seemed to have crossed her bottom line. Chapter 603. The person that attacked her in front of her, the person that dealt with her in front of her, and the person that secretly reached out to her. Naturally, she remained calm and collected. On the surface, they said they were here to see the professor, but in reality, they simply wanted to find out the gender of the baby in her stomach. What was Hua Wenfeng planning? Tongning thought about it for a while, but she couldn't come up with an answer. All she could do was endure it and return to the professor's office. As soon as they saw her return, the couple's expressions remained unchanged as they continued to chat. It seemed they were prepared to let Tongning wait on the sofa. Seeing that the couple had no intention of stopping, Tongning sent Immerse a message. "Hubby, come pick me up and give me an excuse to leave. I'll be there soon," Immerse replied quickly. Tongning secretly curved her lips. She pretended nothing had happened as she flipped through a medical book. After about 10 minutes, the couple finally finished their conversation and turned their attention to Tongning. Xiaoning, this child, is actually quite obedient. At the time, when I heard that Immerse had randomly found someone to marry, I was worried that the child would find someone greedy for benefits. Especially the one with the surname Qi. The old professor pushed up the bridge of his nose and said slowly, afterwards, "I haven't heard from Immerse for a long time. I thought he had reconsidered his decision, but I never expected that he had already been secretly married to you for so long. Seeing that the two of you have such a good relationship, grandfather is relieved." "Thank you for your concern, Professor," Tongning smiled sincerely. "But I never expected that you would become an actress. Over the past few days, I've been worried that it would affect Wenfeng. But from what I've seen today, I can see that it's still the case." The old professor sounded a little disappointed. "So, Xiaoning, can grandfatherly make a request of you?" She wasn't related to him. What kind of request did this professor have for her? "Filial piety is the most important thing. I believe that you are a kind child. So, can you promise me that you will never act again?" The old professor asked in seriousness. That's right. He was serious. Hua Wenfeng couldn't say it out loud, so she allowed others to make things difficult for Tongning. If she didn't agree, she would be considered disloyal and unfilial. Can the professor tell Xiaoning the reason? Is it because of my mother's sad past? After all, this is my career. I can't just abandon it for no reason. I'm feeling quite conflicted. Tongning pointed out the problem with a few words. She was determined to find out the reason behind everything. In other words, it was the knot in Hua Wenfeng's heart. Otherwise, would he let her give up just like that? Was she a puppet that could be manipulated by others? Can't you just agree? The old professor asked helplessly. Tongning smiled and said to the two women, "Even if the professor didn't say anything, I would have already guessed it. But Immerse and I are individuals. Everything about us should be respected by our elders. The metaphorical meaning is that I refuse. Sigh. I'm trying to shorten the distance between you two." Xiaoning didn't know how to appreciate kindness. "I'm sorry," Tongning apologized. The old professor never expected Tongning to reject him so directly. So his attitude towards Tongning became a lot more subtle. "You have to think this through. I think it's a little funny. I, Tongning, am an upright person. Why would I listen to the old professor's suggestion and give up on my career so easily? If my mother says that she's not feeling well tomorrow and that the child in my stomach bumped into her, would I have to get an abortion? Plus, Mom, although we don't agree with each other, at least I feel that you have always been well-mannered. I never expected that you would make things difficult for a junior like me. It's true that I'm an actress, but that's only me. Just because I'm married to Mo Ting, I don't have to listen to everything you say. Let me ask you, have you listened to grandfather? Plus, if it was a good suggestion, perhaps we could have discussed it. But an unreasonable request like this, I'm sorry I can't comply. While Wenfeng's expression changed slightly. She never imagined that she would be taught a lesson by a junior in front of an elder at a place like this. The old professor noticed the change in Hua Wenfeng's expression, so he tried to smooth things over. This has nothing to do with Wenfeng. It's just that I, an old man, was too nosy. Since you don't want to listen, then don't listen. As a descendant, you should consider your parents. How could you be so selfish? Plus, you're a model, not a proper actress. Why can't you change industries and do whatever you want? After hearing this, Tongning felt the professor's words were getting more and more ridiculous. Just as she was about to respond, a deep voice suddenly resounded from behind. Whether she wants to be an actress or not is up to me. Since when did it become your turn? From now on, if you have any similar problems, you can come to me. I am Tongning's manager. Plus, not only do I want her to continue being an actress, I also want her to receive a Best Actress award. Grandfather Li, you have so much free time on your hands, you should be more concerned about your children and grandchildren. I heard that your son got into a fight a couple days ago and is currently being detained. You don't need to worry about the Mo family's matters. The old professor's face turned red and white as a result of Mo Ting's words. He had lost face, but there was nothing he could do to refute Mo Ting's words. All he could do was look away in anger. Shouting, Grandfather Li merely said a few words. Have you forgotten how the professor took care of you in the past? When I'm sick, he treats me. I give him money and I serve him. This is his job. I'm taking Ning with me. From now on, don't even think about taking her anywhere else. After speaking, the couple turned around decisively. At this time, Professor Li asked Mo Ting from behind, is your mother not as important as this actress? Based on what she did today, what do you think? Mo Ting did not turn around, but his voice contained a sense of danger. By the way, I forgot to tell you, Grandfather Li, I want your son to stay in the detention center for a few more days. Do you have any objections? Professor Li's expression suddenly changed. I love my wife dearly. How could I allow someone to mistreat her? Since you don't respect your age, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Everyone knows that I am Mo Ting, dote on my wife. I'm not joking. Who gave you the guts to take advantage of your seniority in front of me? It was obvious that Mo Ting was suppressing the anger in his heart. Afterwards, Tongning tugged on his shirt. Let's go. What's the point of saying so much? I didn't agree to it. Chapter 604. Hua Wenfeng watched helplessly as the couple left. She never expected that Mo Ting would dote on Tongning to such an extent. Wenfeng, it seems your days from now on won't be easy, the old professor scoffed. However, he was used to being arrogant, so he did not take Mo Ting's words to heart. If you don't teach her well, this woman may destroy the Mo family in the future. Hua Wenfeng did not respond. However, a cold glint appeared in her eyes. On the way home, Mo Ting scanned Tongning from head to toe, afraid that she would get hurt again. After all, the few times that Tongning had almost fallen into Mo Ting's trap, Mo Ting was still traumatized. I'm fine, Tongning said as she held onto Mo Ting's hand. I'm completely fine. From now on, if she invites you to any event, no matter what it is, if you don't want to attend, just reject her. Mo Ting was obviously still bothered by the old professor's humiliation. Tongning nodded her head. However, she suddenly remembered that Hua Wenfeng was testing the gender of the baby in her stomach. So, she told Mo Ting everything that had happened. After hearing everything, Mo Ting did not say a word for quite some time. He simply ran his slender fingers across Tongning's bulging stomach and closed his eyes to feel the subtle connection between them. Okay, Mo Ting understood. Mo Ting understood what he meant. Tang Ning didn't need to get involved. He would arrange for some useful people to investigate the matter. No matter what she wants to do, and no matter what she wants to do, you don't need to be afraid. Have I ever been afraid? Tang Ning leaned against Mo Ting's chest as the corners of her lips curved upwards. Mo Ting lowered his head. Just as he was about to place a kiss on Tang Ning's ink-black hair, Tang Ning's phone interrupted his actions. As soon as Tang Ning saw that it was a phone call from Long Jie, she immediately sat up and picked up the phone. It had been a long time since she had seen Long Jie, so she wondered how she was doing. Tang Ning. Long Jie's voice was still as cheerful as before. However, there was a hint of caution in her voice. Where are you right now? Is boss by your side? Of course, Tang Ning nodded. Okay, then I won't care anymore. It's like this. There's a famous French director that's currently looking for an Asian female lead in Beijing. It's a big opportunity for next year, and a lot of famous actresses are fighting for it. I've asked the director's assistant, and he doesn't mind if you go for an audition while pregnant. There are a lot of actresses overseas that are like this. Do you want to give it a try? I didn't dare to tell Lu Che about this, so I asked you first, Long Jie said quietly as she covered her phone. You also know that seasonal dramas are very popular now. It's the drama Headless Female Doctor that has caused a mad scramble for resources recently. It's now in preparation for the 3rd season. After hearing Long Jie's words, Tang Ning burst out laughing. Are you that afraid of Lu Che? Lu Che doesn't want me to affect your body. But I think I am your benefactor. For example, when you went for a checkup with me, if not for that, you would not have known you were pregnant and exposed Tang Xian's scheme. From this perspective, Long Jie was indeed a person who brought good luck.
Let me think about it.
Then I'll send you the information and the script first. Okay. Tang Ning nodded with a smile. Seeing her expression, Mo Ting snatched the phone out of her hand and hugged her tightly. What trouble does Long Jie want to cause this time? She helped me fight for a big-name project. Do you remember the season drama called The Headless Female Doctor in France? The director is currently in preparation for the 3rd season, but he needs an Asian actress. So you want to give it a try? Mo Ting raised an eyebrow. It's not impossible, but it must not affect your health. If you need to use force, then there's no room for negotiation. I'll ask Long Jie to send you the information first. If you have permission, I'll go for an audition. An audition because of her pregnancy. It had been a long time since Tang Ning had experienced her addiction to acting. So Mo Ting understood how she felt. But I'm sure Mom will feel a little uncomfortable. She's already made you feel uncomfortable. Mo Ting's protectiveness was frightening. So, Tang Ning naturally didn't want to pass on the responsibility. From now on, I will handle things like this myself. I can't let my husband handle everything. I don't want you to be misunderstood by others. Hearing this, Mo Ting held onto Tang Ning's right hand and placed a gentle kiss on the back of it. There are more than a few people that misunderstand me. As long as I have a wife to dote on me, that's enough. Doting on each other, this was something that most couples couldn't do. After all, most people were selfish. For the sake of pride, they could give up on their lover. For the sake of their career, they could give up on their lover. There would always be a reason for them to do something that they knew they would regret for the rest of their lives. Perhaps, to create hype, the French director immediately released the news as soon as he found out that Tang Ning might be attending an audition. Rumor has it that Tang Ning is about to audition. Is she planning to make a comeback? She's pregnant, yet she's auditioning. Netizens are calling her stubborn. Meanwhile, the netizens were in a heated discussion. I just asked a friend for some information. I was just about to mention that the brainless zombie doctor looks quite similar to Tang Ning. They're both equally cool. Oh God, if only I could see Tang Ning with curly hair, a leather skirt, and a gun in her hand. How cool would she look? Tang Ning, hurry up and audition. You have to secure the role. Actually, Mo Ting had only just received the information from Long Jie. Of course, there was nothing to worry about with the Ace production crew. But who could guarantee that Tang Ning would be 100% safe? Even though she had already bought insurance for her legs, from the looks of it, other parts of her body also needed insurance. President, my wife has caused trouble for you. Actually, the madam didn't need to know about this, Lu Che said apologetically as he looked at Mo Ting's furrowed brows. Since you've already said that she's your wife, what else can I do? Mo Ting put down the information in his hand and looked at Lu Che. Go and understand her personality and hobbies. I'm sure there will be a lot of people attending the audition, so safety is the most important thing. Yes, President. How come there's no time for an audition? Mo Ting flipped through the information in his hand, but he still hadn't found the most important one. Long Man is still asking about it. In a moment, I will send it to the madam, Lu Che replied. Let's do that then. By the way, President, I heard that your mother doesn't like actors? Hearing this question, Mo Ting lifted his head and glared at Lu Che. It was like he was saying, since when did you have the right to ask about something like this? Lu Che had good intentions, so he had no choice but to leave Mo Ting's office with a wronged expression. Chapter 605. Not long after Hua Wenfeng announced that she didn't like actors, news of Tong Ning's upcoming audition was already spreading. Worst of all, she was carrying a child with her. So, it was impossible for her to maintain her previous good manners. While Mo Ting wasn't around, she headed upstairs and knocked on Tong Ning and Mo Ting's bedroom door.
Mom.
Hua Wenfeng stood outside the door with her arms crossed. She handed Tong Ning the newspaper and asked, What audition are you going for? Tong Ning looked at the newspaper in Hua Wenfeng's hands and nodded her head. I'm currently waiting for my audition. Are you crazy? Hua Wenfeng threw the newspaper in front of Tong Ning. Don't you know that you are already in your 7th month of pregnancy? Why can't you just stay at home and wait to give birth? Mom, things aren't what you think they are. Who's your mom? Hua Wenfeng asked. Although you and Mo Ting are married and recognized by the law, in my heart, I have the right to reject you as my daughter-in-law. In that case, there's nothing else to say. Tong Ning's expression turned cold as she replied. Do you like acting that much? You haven't even given birth yet you can't wait to go out and show off. Hearing the word show off, Tong Ning kept repeating in her heart. She was Mo Ting's mother, so she endured until Hua Wenfeng finally said, I won't allow it. You're being too nosy, Tong Ning replied coldly before she closed the door. As a result, Tong Ning realized that she might not be able to live under the same roof as Hua Wenfeng and get along with each other. She needed to think of a foolproof plan. Afterwards, Tong Ning gave Tang Jingxian a phone call. Jingxian, your sister is in a bit of trouble. Can you help me out? My dear sister, my injuries haven't recovered yet. You need to rest, Tong Ning replied calmly. Okay, tell me what it is. Tang Jingxian was currently on speakerphone because he was currently holding on to a bowl of chicken soup that Su Qingyan had prepared for him. Tong Ning told Tang Jingxian what she was thinking. As soon as Su Qingyan heard it, she raised her hand and joined in. I'll move in too. You? Tang Jingxian looked at her questioningly. What identity? Your wife, Su Qingyan blurted out. After speaking, the two men were stunned. On the other end of the phone, Tong Ning smiled and said, Since that's the case, both of you can come over. Afterwards, she gave Mo Ting a phone call. She did not tell him about her argument with Hua Wenfeng. Instead, she simply told him that Tang Jingxian wanted to come over to her home to recover from his injuries and spend some time with her. As soon as Mo Ting heard this, he knew what Tong Ning was planning, so his lips curved upwards into a smile. As long as you're happy. However, as soon as the two women put down their phones, Mo Ting's gaze turned deep and cold. If Hua Wenfeng hadn't done something outrageous, Tong Ning would not have come up with a plan to avoid her. However, Tong Ning did not say. To ensure that everything went smoothly, Mo Ting headed straight to the hospital after work and returned to Hyatt Regency with Tang Jingxian and Su Qingyan. At this moment, Hua Wenfeng was the only one standing in the living room. As soon as she saw them, she looked at them questioningly. However, Su Qingyan immediately approached them and said, You must be Auntie Hua. You look so elegant and have maintained yourself well. I heard that you specialize in biotechnology. I admire you so much. Do you accept apprentices? Faced with Su Qingyan's series of questions, Hua Wenfeng looked confused and uncomfortable. After quite some time, Su Qingyan finally introduced herself. My name is Su Qingyan. I am the chairman of Su Corps. I am Tang Jingshuan's wife, and I call President Mo brother-in-law. Hua Wenfeng looked at Mo Ting suspiciously as Mo Ting nodded his head. Jingxian is injured and not feeling well, so he came over to stay for a few days. Hua Wenfeng wanted to say something, but Su Qingyan beat her to it. Don't worry, Andy. We won't stay here forever. We know our place well. Otherwise, brother-in-law would definitely kick us out. Su Qingyan was actually mocking Hua Wenfeng by saying that she wouldn't leave. Of course, because Hua Wenfeng didn't like Tongning, she didn't like the Tang family either. Doesn't the Tang family have a house? The Su family home is also habitable, isn't it?
We're all a family.
Isn't it fun to be together? Auntie, President Mo even bought a house for you at Hyatt Regency, yet you haven't moved out yet. I'm sure you can't bear to part with President Mo and Ningjia, right? Plus, they are about to give birth to their baby. Hua Wenfeng was rendered speechless by Su Qingyan's words. She took a deep breath, uncrossed her arms, and entered her own guest room. Seeing this, Tang Jingxian raised his thumb at Su Qingyan. You're amazing. Of course, I learned it from Yilan. It seemed Yilan's many years at the Su household had not been a bad thing for Su Qingyan. At least, she had learned a few tricks. Tonight, the two of you can sleep in another guest room, Mo Ting said straightforwardly.
Air.
President Mo, is there only one room left? Although Su Qingyan had already recognized her feelings for Tang Jingxian, she didn't think things should progress so quickly. Fine, one room. With my current state, are you afraid that I will turn into a wolf? Why don't we put a bowl of water in the middle of the bed? Tang Jingxian asked as he looked at Su Qingyan dotingly. Su Qingyan took a deep breath and waved her hand. Forget it. Who knows, I might be the one taking advantage of you. Anything is fine. As long as we don't make any noise upstairs and disturb Ning's rest. Don't worry, brother-in-law. Tang Jingxian promised in seriousness. I really can't tell that President Mo, who dotes on Ningjia so much, would have a mother like this. Luckily, Ningjia isn't the type to meekly accept adversity. Otherwise, her days would be very difficult, Su Qingyan said as she leaned against Tang Jingshuan's shoulder. So, in order to achieve our goal as soon as possible, we need to create a big commotion tonight. How do we do that? Show us a film like that. As Su Qingyan spoke, her face turned slightly red. As a woman, she was naturally embarrassed. Especially since she was in the same room as a man. Forget it, it's too awkward. I think it's a good idea. Tang Jingxian laughed. If we don't use some special methods, how are we going to win by surprise? What if you have feelings for me? Su Qingyan immediately wrapped her arms around her shoulders. I actually think you want me to have feelings for you. Su Qingyan couldn't win against Tang Jingxian verbally, so she could only turn her head away and hide her smile. On the second floor, as soon as Tongning saw Mo Ting enter the bedroom, she couldn't help but ask, Are they here? I didn't let you down. I won a beautiful battle for you, Mo Ting replied as he put down his jacket and sat down on the edge of the bed. Do you think I went a little overboard? Chapter 606. Has she said anything bad to you in the past? Mo Ting asked as he stared into Tongning's eyes. Tongning was suddenly stunned. She never expected Mo Ting to have such a direct insight.
She said things that can't hurt me.
Whether it hurts or not is not up to you to decide. It is up to me to decide, Mo Ting said firmly and domineeringly. You are already married to me, so I will naturally protect you. Even if she is my mother, it is not a reason for you to get hurt. Tell me, okay? After hearing this, Tongning patted the back of Mo Ting's hand and smiled. It's not a big deal. It's just a few bad words. After hearing this, Mo Ting's gaze suddenly became unfathomable. That night, Tang Jingxian lay on the unfamiliar bed as he looked at Su Qingyan, who had just come out of the bathroom. It turned out, before Su Qingyan went to bed, she liked to wear sportswear. Although her figure wasn't extremely seductive, she emitted a unique fragrance that made Tang Jingxuan's heart race. "What are you looking at?" Su Qingyan asked as she held a towel and dried her hair. At this time, Tang Jingxian did not hold back as he replied, "You look good. I have scars all over my body. What's there to look at?" Su Qingyan subconsciously tried to hide her scars. "That is also a part of you. Don't talk nonsense. We have an important mission to accomplish here." After speaking, Su Qingyan began to fiddle with the television not too far away from the bed. It didn't take long before an embarrassing scene played on the television. Su Qingyan's face burned red, but she couldn't avoid it. As a result, the two women felt a little awkward. "Turn it up a little louder," Tang Jingxian reminded Su Qingyan. Su Qingyan responded with an "okay" as she reached for the remote control. Her flustered expression made Tang Jingxian laugh out loud. Perhaps because she was being laughed at, Su Qingyan angrily jumped back onto the bed and knelt in front of Tang Jingxian. Just as she was about to raise her hand to hit him, Tang Jingxian wrapped his arm around Su Qingyan's neck and pulled her closer to him. Their lips gently touched. Su Qingyan's eyes grew wide. She originally wanted to struggle, but Tang Jingxian wrapped his arm around her neck, not giving her a chance to move. Su Qingyan's body tensed up. She was so nervous that she couldn't control herself. However, behind them, the couple on the television were doing their best to prove their charm. A moment later, Su Qingyan finally relaxed, and Tang Jingxian patiently waited for her to accept him. Finally, their lips returned to each other's warmth. However, they remained in this position for quite some time. They were so pure and innocent as if they were back at school. After the kiss ended, Su Qingyan lay on Tang Jingxuan's chest, gasping for breath. At this time, Tang Jingxian laughed. "Have you never kissed before?" "You've never kissed before, Su Qingyan." Tang Su Qingyan, Su. Tang, Mo, Xian, Su, King. In the future, don't avoid it. Just enjoy it, okay? Qingyan, it wasn't easy for me to be able to hug you. Even though, I don't know if you're staying with me because you are grateful for what I did for you, Tang Jingxian said as he gently stroked Su Qingyan's back. Let's listen to the humming on the television. Su Qingyan appeared fierce on the surface, but in reality, the number of people she had truly liked could be counted on 2 fingers. After speaking, Su Qingyan once again increased the volume of the television. This time, not only could the people next door hear them, the entire building could hear them. In this environment, the only person that could sit still under the covers and chat was probably Tang Jingxian. Next door, Hua Wenfeng was already a light sleeper. Hearing the 2 people next door acting so carelessly, she was furious. But she couldn't possibly go and knock on someone else's door, right? So, Hua Wenfeng endured for an entire night. It wasn't until the next morning that Tang Jingxian and Su Qingyan's room returned to normal. Afterwards, they woke up feeling refreshed. But as Su Qingyan walked into the room to call Hua Wenfeng for breakfast, she noticed the expression on Hua Wenfeng's face. "Auntie, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Hua Wenfeng felt a headache coming on as soon as she saw Su Qingyan. So, she waved her hand and gestured for her to leave. Su Qingyan continued to pester Hua Wenfeng. "Auntie, I'm waiting for you to wake up and teach me how to study nature. When you're done sleeping, you must let me know. I'll be waiting for you in the living room." Hua Wenfeng couldn't be bothered with Su Qingyan. In fact, she didn't even lift a finger as she directly fell asleep. Seeing this, Su Qingyan held back her laughter as she left Hua Wenfeng's room and returned to the dining table. "After what I said, I'm sure Annie won't even think about getting out of bed today." "You've worked hard," Qingyan, Tongning thanked. "Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult for me to do it on my own." Tang Jingxian was still resting in his room due to his injury, while Mo Ting had left for Hai Rui early in the morning. So, only Su Qingyan and Tongning remained at the dining table. As soon as Su Qingyan heard that Tongning was struggling, she leaned on the table and asked, Auntie Xia shouldn't be too difficult, right? Nothing like that, Tongning replied as she sipped on her milk. To be honest, I really don't understand why these so-called mothers-in-law have to interfere with their children's lives. Not only that, they always have ulterior motives. After all, this is someone that will be living with her son for the rest of his life. Plus, she doesn't like actors, so why did she insist that you withdraw from the industry? She's being too selfish. Tongning did not say a word. She simply looked at Su Qingyan the entire time. Fine, let's not talk about this anymore. But are you really going to audition for the French film? Su Qingyan quickly changed the subject. Tongning did not say a word. She simply smiled as she took another bite of her sandwich. There were indeed a lot of people fighting for the opportunity to audition for this film. After all, it was a big production and had guaranteed ratings. Plus, the plot was complete. As long as the actors didn't perform poorly, they would definitely be a hit on TV. There was no need for any other tricks. Tongning had already looked through the script, but she had already played a similar role in the past. So, unfortunately, this role did not appeal to her. After breakfast, Su Qingyan returned to Sucor. After all, she had a bunch of urgent matters to deal with. It didn't take long before Long Jie sent her the exact time of the audition. But at that time, Tongning was busy tidying up in the kitchen. At this time, Hua Wenfeng appeared from her bedroom. Seeing Tongning's phone vibrating on the table, she grabbed it in her hands. Tongning did not receive any notification regarding the audition time. Chapter 607. So, by the time Tongning found out about the time of the audition, the registration period had already ended. The registration period has already ended. Why haven't I received a reply from you? Long Jie asked after waiting for Tongning to reply. Time? Tongning asked confusedly. I didn't see the time that you notified me. I clearly sent you a message, Long Jie said before she sent a screenshot of the message to Tongning. I already told you yesterday. As Tongning picked up the phone, Hua Wenfeng was sitting in the living room watching the news. But Tongning suddenly realized that the matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Could it be that Bus doesn't agree to it? I can understand. After all, his health is more important. He will have plenty of opportunities in the future. Talk to you later. I have some matters that I need to deal with immediately. After speaking, Tongning hung up the phone and returned to the sofa as if nothing had happened. She then sat down and placed her phone on the coffee table. Mom, did you not sleep well last night? Why are you so pale? After listening to the sound of waves for 2 consecutive nights, it would be strange if Hua Wenfeng had slept well. So, she scoffed and did not respond. Tongning sneered and did not say a word. But a moment later, she pulled out her phone and flipped to a news article. She then sighed. Mom, look at this news. A mother-in-law secretly deleted messages from her daughter-in-law's phone and slandered her for having an affair with an outsider. In the end, she was sued by her daughter-in-law. There's also this news. A mother-in-law secretly looked at her daughter-in-law's phone and stole her phone's password. She then stole millions of dollars in assets from her daughter-in-law and was detained. While Wenfeng's expression changed as she turned to look at Tongning and asked, What are you trying to say? Mom, what's wrong? I simply thought the news was ridiculous, so I wanted to share it with you. After all, I know that you are a righteous person, Tongning replied with a smile. As soon as Hua Wenfeng heard Tongning's words, she understood what she was trying to say. Don't worry, I wouldn't do something like this. Then, how did Mom delete my messages? Tongning asked straightforwardly. As soon as Hua Wenfeng heard this, she immediately stood up and yelled, How dare you? Do you think I'm someone that you can slander? We know in our hearts whether it is true or not. Tongning said coldly, If you want to treat me as a daughter-in-law who meekly accepts adversity, then you're wrong. I, Tongning, have always been a person of my word. Even if my family does something behind my back, I will still be ruthless. You are right. I am indeed ruthless. However, You know very well why I am ruthless. If you had even the slightest hint of an elder, I would have respected and loved you, but you just had to do the opposite. Don't try to use Ting to threaten me. You have no chance of winning. Are you that confident? Hua Wenfeng laughed in disdain. Other people's daughters-in-law are filial to their husbands. You, on the other hand, will destroy this family sooner or later. As long as I have a child, this family will not fall apart. As for you, Madam Hua, don't say that I didn't warn you. Don't regret losing your son. But don't forget, he only has one mother, but he can have many wives. With Ting's background, do you think he won't have any women? Tongning couldn't understand why Hua Wenfeng's mind was filled with so many old-fashioned thoughts. She had obviously lived overseas for many years. Just like that, the couple had a huge argument and parted on bad terms. However, Tongning forgot that Tang Jingxian was also in the house and had overheard the entire argument. Sis. Tang Jingxian stood in the doorway and looked at Tongning with a pained expression. In the past, Tongning had been tormented by Han Yufan. Would she have to face a mother-in-law like this for the rest of her life? I'm fine, Tongning replied calmly. Don't worry. Tell brother-in-laws. In the end, Tongning decided not to tell Ting. It wasn't because she sympathized with Hua Wenfeng, but because she didn't want Ting to feel guilty and worry. Today, she had been too impatient and didn't have the patience she should have. But just because she didn't say anything didn't mean Tang Jingxian wouldn't mention it to Ting. After Tongning returned to her room, Tang Jingxian immediately gave Ting a phone call. Brother-in-law. Huh. I just heard Sister 3 and Auntie arguing. I never imagined that Auntie's words would be so undignified and her actions would be so similar to Tang Xian's. Speak clearly. Ting's expression suddenly darkened. Tang Jingxian had already planned to complain, so he explained everything that had happened in the living room to Ting, including the words that Hua Wenfeng had said. After hearing this, Ting was silent for a few seconds before he asked in a deep voice, "How is your sister feeling? How good can she be?" Ting did not say a word as he hung up the phone. But, at this moment, Lu Che could feel the unapproachable coldness emanating from Ting's body. 7 p.m. Ting returned home from work. Seeing Hua Wenfeng sitting in the living room drinking tea, he headed upstairs and said gently to Tongning, who was lying in bed, "Ning, get up and eat something before you go to sleep." Okay. Tongning got up in a daze. Under Ting's care, they walked downstairs together. The couple sat down in front of Hua Wenfeng without a word. However, both Tongning and Hua Wenfeng had an unnatural expression on their faces. It's hard for me to imagine that you gave birth to me. After quite some time, Ting finally spoke. After quite some time, Ting finally spoke. As soon as he spoke, Hua Wenfeng's body trembled. It's also hard for me to imagine that you are an intellectual that specializes in biology. Mom, you're wrong. For me, I only have one wife, but I can live without my mom. Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder. If you insist on using your identity as my mother to bully her, then we can consider severing our mother-son relationship. Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder and spoke in a low and powerful voice, enunciating each word clearly. If you insist on using your identity as my mother to bully her, then we can consider severing our mother-son relationship. Ting, how can you speak to your mom like that? Hua Wenfeng glared at him. What exactly did you learn abroad? Who taught you to treat your daughter-in-law like this? All these years, I've actually not understood you at all. Hua Wenfeng's expression darkened as she looked away. Humiliating your daughter-in-law? I never thought something like this would happen to you. Mom, you have truly impressed me. Of course, you know deep down that you can't control Tongning, nor can you control me. From now on, it's best if you don't step foot into this household. Ting, is this how you treat your mother? Perhaps you want me to treat you in a more dignified but smarter way. This was how Ting treated his enemies. Chapter 608. Hua Wenfeng froze in place and did not continue to argue with Ting. She knew, at a time like this, no matter what she said, it would only make Ting and Tongning hate her even more. So, after glancing at Ting, Hua Wenfeng admitted defeat. Holding back her anger, she turned around and returned to her room. When it comes to Mom, I have a lot of questions. Tongning turned and looked at Ting. Logically speaking, Mom belongs to the Bei family. Why isn't her surname Bei? Also, why does she hate actors so much? If she hates actors, then how did she tolerate Bei Qindong, grandfather, and the entire Hairue? Faced with Tongning's question, Ting lowered his head and gently stroked the back of her hand. I originally wanted to tell you about these questions, but there are some things that I still don't understand.
Give me some time.
Although Tongning didn't quite understand what Ting meant, after being married for so long, she naturally understood him. So, she nodded her head. I trust you. Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder and gently stroked it. However, he continued to look in the direction that Hua Wenfeng had left with an unfathomable gaze. Also, even if she didn't do that and didn't delete the messages on my phone, I still wouldn't have chosen to attend the audition. What I'm most curious about is, how did she know the password to my phone? What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you. Ting changed the topic as he sat down with his arm around Tongning's shoulder.
Leave this matter to me.
I will arrange for Lu Che to come over tomorrow. You don't need to worry about anything. From now on, no one will ever be able to humiliate you again. Plus, I finally feel like you didn't dote on Tang Jingxian for nothing. As for the French director's seasonal drama, after looking through the script, Tongning and Ting agreed that there was no need to create a similar character for the sake of popularity. After all, she was a reserved fighter in The Lost Relative. This was no challenge for Tongning, so naturally, she wasn't attractive enough. Plus, the baby in her stomach was about to be 7 months old, so Tongning didn't feel the need to take the risk. However, just as the public were guessing whether Tongning would attend the audition, and Zaheo once again arrived at Hyatt Regency to look for Tongning. After seeing him, Tongning couldn't help but laugh. You don't come to me for no reason. Tell me, why are you looking for me? And Zaheo was dressed in a light gray suit, giving off the appearance of a business elite. In his hands was a thick stack of documents. After exchanging glances with Tongning, he placed the script in front of her. See if you're interested. Tongning looked down and saw the name of the script, Concubine Ning. You're going to be the female lead, and you're going to be the villain. Hearing the word villain, Tongning suddenly laughed. After all, she had once been a top manager, so she understood Tongning's likes and dislikes. She knew that Tongning didn't like conventional things and liked to challenge the impossible. Are you interested? This drama is produced by Tsiwan Entertainment, and Shin Feng is the executive director. He said that as long as he has a good script, you will be the first person he will consider. He did not go back on his words. But, with my current situation, Tongning realized it was impossible for her to participate in any productions, even though her heart had already been moved by the word villain. Don't worry, this drama takes a long time to prepare. As it is produced by a national film company, they are extremely meticulous in every aspect. Even the maids in the palace need to be trained for at least half a year. So, you don't need to worry, and Zaheo explained. It's not easy to find a role you like. Plus, it's such a big investment and such a big platform. I'm sure you won't reject me, right? Tongning accepted the script and nodded her head. How do you expect me to repay you for giving me such a big gift? Remember, there will always be a chance. Actually, this drama contained a lot of dangerous scenes, such as jumping into a deep pool or swimming in a glacier. Other actresses wouldn't necessarily put in as much effort. But when it came to Tongning, and Zaheo did not doubt her at all. For the sake of acting, Tongning was willing to put in more effort than most people. This was one of her shining points that couldn't be replicated. Okay, now that we're done with business, let's talk about something personal. Isn't it time to start dating? After all, the incident with Yun Xian has been in the past for so many years. It's time you let go of it. You used to be a manager, And now you're a director. Is there anything different about the women you meet? There's nothing different. Not everyone in this industry is like you, and Zaheo laughed. But a few days ago, I met a very interesting person. Speaking of this, and Zaheo fell into deep thought. That day, he went to Tsuwon Film and Television and saw a group of extras at a certain filming location. Extras shouldn't be underestimated. If they died a simple death, they could easily receive a reward. For an unambitious actor, this was more than enough to fill their stomachs. But that day, he saw a pretty and cool-looking woman amongst the extras. She was waiting in line for a job, but she was also responsible for fixing people's bones to earn some extra money. Of course, this wasn't anything strange. But what made Zaheo laugh was, this woman was quite skilled and was a stunt double. Yet, she refused to be a stunt double. She insisted on being an extra. Every time she hit someone, she would dislocate their joints and ask them to pay her to fix their bones. Her personality was quite interesting. Of course, this was the result of Zaheo's repeated observations. Perhaps he could get her to act in Concubine Ning. That wasn't Zaheo's plan. When he actually told old Master Chinfeng about his plan, the old man simply told him to look for the woman. Unfortunately, the woman who had been around a few days ago had already disappeared. After asking around, he found out that she had returned to being a stunt double. In fact, she had taken on a major drama and was acting as a stunt double for an important character. Fine, he had indeed acted too late. At this time, Zaheo had no idea that he would be entangled with this woman for the rest of his life. That afternoon, Lu Che received orders to arrive at Hyatt Regency. His mission was to help Hua Wenfeng leave the country. Although Hua Wenfeng was a little upset, since Mo Ting had already given his orders, if she didn't do as he said, there would be more conflicts in the family. At the moment, it wasn't appropriate for her to go head-to-head with Mo Ting. Tell Tongning that even though I've left, it doesn't mean that my eyes aren't on her. Lu Che didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he helped Hua Wenfeng close the car door. Not only did Tongning have no intention of attending the audition because she was pregnant, even if she did, no one would dare to say a word. As long as Mo Ting agreed, everything would be fine. But the rare thing was Tongning always knew her limits. Chapter 609. Mo Ting had already found out from Zaheo that Tongning had been invited to Concubine Ning. Of course, as soon as he saw the script, he knew that Tongning would definitely like the name of the film, especially since the story was so well written and the production was so huge. Most importantly, the film was produced by the National Film and Television Corporation. For Tongning, this was a huge recognition. Even an actor like Lin Sheng had never received such an opportunity. Concubine Ning, interesting. Mo Ting flipped through Concubine Ning's script and saw a brief description of the character. She was a complete villain, so bad that it made people grind their teeth in anger. Of course, with such a powerful background, the production crew of Concubine Ning naturally invited a large number of actors. Just the concubines alone, there were at least 10. It was indeed a complicated harem. President, I've already made arrangements for Auntie, Lu Che reported to Mo Ting as soon as he returned to the agency. Have a look at the script. Mo Ting pushed the script of Concubine Ning towards Lu Che. This is such a good script. President, are you planning to? It's a big production with a lot of people. If Tongning enters a production like this, even if she has 3 assistants by her side, I won't be able to rest easy. Mo Ting replied calmly. Make some arrangements early so that we can adapt to the situation. After all, along the way, Tongning had already met with too many strong opponents and suffered from too many schemes. Now that she had landed a role like this after just a year of acting, it was hard to guarantee that no one would be jealous and try to do something to her. I understand, President. There's one more thing. I need you to visit an overseas research facility. Hearing the words research facility, Lu Che froze for a few seconds before he realized it was because of Hua Wenfeng. In that case, what do you want to know? Arrange for someone to investigate if my mother has experienced anything major over the past few years. Mo Ting did not explain things clearly, but Lu Che already understood his intentions. After hearing this, Mo Ting began to doubt Hua Wenfeng's character. I understand. I will take the earliest flight over. This was the reason why Mo Ting did not tell Tongning anything. He had a feeling that something wasn't right. That night, Mo Ting returned home to find Tongning sitting on the sofa, reading a script. His lips curved upwards. What if I don't agree to let you act in this drama? Tongning put down her script and looked at Mo Ting with determination. Impossible. You have never stopped me from doing what I want to do. Mo Ting reached out and pulled Tongning into his embrace. He placed his chin on top of her head. As long as it's something you want to do, even if I have to give up my life, I am willing. I don't want your life. I just want you to be happy for the rest of your life. After speaking, Tongning hooked her arms around Mo Ting's neck and planted a kiss on his lips. At this time, Tang Jingxian and Su Qingyan walked out of the room and cleared their throats. Sis, brother-in-law, our mission has been completed. We will be leaving now. You guys continue. Come again when you have time. Tongning smiled at the two without changing her posture. President Mo is normally such a scary person. Why is he like a lion when he's with Ningjia? Isn't it a little cute? Let's talk outside. Tang Jingxian reminded Su Qingyan. In actual fact, Tongning had already heard Su Qingyan's words. After the two left, she turned to Mo Ting and smiled. Cute? Let me see. How am I cute? Mo Ting looked at her dotingly. Ever since Zaheo heard that the young woman was going to be a stunt double, he tried all sorts of connections to track her down. There was indeed a role in Concubine Ning that suited her. But the film industry wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It would be great if he could see the young woman act mysteriously again. And Zaheo looked at the line of extras and shook his head. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, however, just as he opened the car door, he noticed the young woman had opened up a stall to fix people's bones. She was wearing a short military jacket and a pair of black leggings. She looked like a ruffian and a little cool. Her temperament was indeed different from ordinary people. What are you looking at? Do you want to fix your bones? But someone like you should be nourishing their kidneys. As soon as Nzeheo heard the woman's question, he immediately replied, This is government territory. The young woman lifted her eyes with a hint of disdain. It was like she was asking Nzeheo, What do you care? In that case, how do I nourish my kidneys? Bro, take a closer look. The young woman pointed to the words on the stall. The girl pointed at the words bone fixing on the stall and said to Nzeheo, I only fix bones, not kidneys. How about I cripple you first? Then we can do it again. Your temper seems a little strange. The young woman replied as she rolled her eyes. Why do you need to be so serious? Don't get in my way. Nzeheo had no way of fighting back against a woman like her. It was impossible to guess what she would do next. Seeing that he hadn't left, the young woman asked straightforwardly, Or, do you want to chase me? I want you to act with me. I know you are a stunt double. I'm not interested. The young woman waved her hand, pushing Nzeheo away. In that case, can you give me your contact details? The young woman sighed as she looked at Nzeheo like he was retarded. Didn't you see that there is a QR code on the fixed bones sign? I saw it, but it's a payment code. Nzeheo explained, Are you actually a scammer? I think I can call the police. Plus, this is government territory. You can use it as you please. If I call the police, I'm sure your stall will be destroyed. Most importantly, a loud bang was heard. Before Nzeheo could finish his sentence, the young woman had punched him in the face before she turned and ran. Nzeheo never knew that a woman could be this strong. Mister, are you okay? A passerby asked kindly as she saw Nzeheo get hit. Why did you provoke Xiaoyi? She grew up here and has a weird temper. Plus, she's an expert at swindling people. She may be a stunt double now, but she could be a fortune teller tomorrow and a drug dealer the day after. Actually, this child has had a hard life. Not long after her father came here as an extra, he went missing. At that time, she was only 6 years old and had no home to return to. She relied on the rice from hundreds of families to grow into the way she is now. Perhaps it's because she has been fighting with evil people since she was young. That's why she is willing to learn everything and be good at everything. Chapter 610. Is she going to be a fortune teller tomorrow? And Zaheo couldn't hide his curiosity after hearing the passerby's words. After the passerby heard this, a look of surprise appeared on the passerby's face. It was obvious. She never expected that someone would want to provoke a female hooligan. Logically speaking, she prefers to fix people's broken bones because extra actors tend to get injured, the passerby said as he pointed to the stall in front of Zaheo. And Zaheo nodded his head as he adjusted his tie and rubbed the spot where he had just been hit. He then left the filming location. Really, such an interesting girl. Even though he had already received a punch as soon as he arrived. Tongning did not attend the audition for the French director's film. As a result, the actors that were prepared to compete with Tongning all gave up in disappointment. In the end, the role ended up being given to a martial arts star. The film didn't have a lot of non-action scenes to begin with, so if there was an actor that was better at martial arts, they would be more willing to go with it. However, the French director had previously used Tongning's popularity to promote the film in Beijing. Although Tongning's popularity had increased along with her, in the end, Tongning did not even attend the audition. So, it was easy for the public to assume that they had slipped out of the cast. In the end, the production crew announced to the public that they had chosen Tongning because she wasn't as suitable as the young actor that had been chosen, so they only chose the most suitable one. Since they had already chosen the actress, they naturally wanted to increase their popularity. So, using Tongning to create hype was the best and fastest way to do so. There were all sorts of newcomers debuting in the entertainment industry every day, and countless actors and actresses experienced ups and downs. Some actors' lives were more exciting than their scripts, while others worked hard but remained unknown. After Hua Wenfeng moved out of the house, Tongning temporarily found some peace. However, this peace did not last for long. Hua Wenfeng had been invited to attend a lecture on new biology research. She was to talk about the latest research results to the medical school students. However, during the lecture, someone suddenly walked up to the podium and handed a notebook and pen to Hua Wenfeng. "Professor Hua, we know you are Tongning's mother-in-law. Can you help us get an autograph?" Professor Hua is lucky to have a superstar as a daughter-in-law. Hua Wenfeng's expression did not look good as she ignored the two. "Professor Hua, please help us." The two slightly chubby female students handed over the pen and paper again. Hua Wenfeng glanced down at her autograph and pushed the pen and paper away. She then said to the two women, "Tongning doesn't have anything worth asking for an autograph from you. You should keep the money you earn from chasing celebrities and buy better medical books." Professor Hua. She's just an actress. At most, she's just a sensationalist. So I hope that all of you will have a bright future. Don't go and entertain the public and embarrass yourselves. Hua Wenfeng's words were said in front of everyone. It was equivalent to telling everyone that she did not think highly of Tongning. "Continue with your speech." Her words, whether to the public or to the media, reflected the truth. Tongning's relationship with her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was terrible. As a result, the media immediately shifted their focus to the relationship between Tongning and Hua Wenfeng. As soon as Tongning heard the news, her expression was as cold as ice as the corners of her lips curved upwards. She had no idea that Hua Wenfeng would reveal such a private matter because of a small grudge. The mother-in-law doesn't like her daughter-in-law. Hua Wenfeng did not like Tongning. As a result, a serious problem arose. As soon as the two women stepped out of Hyatt Regency, they were surrounded by a large group of reporters. Hua Wenfeng didn't know how to disguise herself, so she was surrounded by a group of reporters. But Tongning had plenty of ways to escape. As a result, Tongning watched as Hua Wenfeng was surrounded by reporters, but she had no intention of reaching out to help her. Hua Wenfeng watched as Tongning left, but there was nothing she could do. Her eyes were filled with anger. Tongning, on the other hand, wanted to teach Hua Wenfeng a lesson. As soon as she exposed the private matters of the family, she would be hurt. Seeing that Tongning had no intention of helping her, Hua Wenfeng decided to release a statement. Actually, the rumors are not all rumors. I have indeed never acknowledged Tongning as my daughter-in-law. Previously, when Tang Xian was hospitalized and the Tang family treated her coldly, it was also true. After Elder Tang took Tang Xian's child away, he completely abandoned her at the hospital. The most outrageous thing was, he even told Tang Xian, who was having a difficult labor, that if an accident happened, the Tang family would choose to protect the child and abandon the mother. As for Tongning, she is arrogant, vicious, and condescending at home. If this is the celebrity that you guys like, then there's nothing I can do. Actually, I still have a lot of information that I haven't revealed. Hua Wenfeng had revealed information. In fact, it was explosive information. When it came to Tongning and Mo Ting, no one had more right to speak than she did. After all, she was their mother. Also, I don't know what kind of shady business she has done in the past, but the child in her stomach is not growing well and may be born with a disability. I am a medical student, so I can prove it in many ways. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. As for her brother, he is currently living with the heiress of the Su family. He has been staying at Hyatt Regency for the past few days. Every day, there have been extremely lewd noises coming from his room. It's quite unpleasant to listen to. President, what should we do? We try to suppress the news, but it keeps resurfacing. Right now, people are suspecting that Hai Rui has spent money to remove the search rankings. Lu Che looked at the information with a serious expression on his face. This time, Hua Wenfeng had crossed the line to the point where Lu Che had no idea how to deal with the situation. After all, she was Mo Ting's mother. Mo Ting looked at the information and threw it into the air. He had never seen a mother like this. He had never seen a mother like Hua Wenfeng.
Let me think about it.
Mo Ting did not say a word. To be exact, he spent the entire day in his office without saying a single word to anyone. It didn't take long before Tongning gave Lu Che a phone call. Where's Ting? The president has locked himself in his office all day. Lu Che replied. Madam, do you want me to come pick you up? No matter how powerful the president is, he is still a human, not a god. No need, I'm already on my way, Tongning replied. Her first thought was whether Mo Ting would be hurt. After all, they were family. Yet, she never expected that Hua Wenfeng would stab them in the back. How was Tongning to clear her name? How is she to explain herself? Chapter 611. In fact, Hua Wenfeng's actions didn't seem like the way she treated her son. In fact, it seemed like she was treating her enemy. Mo Ting, who was as noble as a king, was supposed to have a magnanimous mother. But from the way Hua Wenfeng acted, it seemed like she didn't understand the bigger picture. Tongning stepped into Mo Ting's office through the elevator. Seeing him deep in thought, she walked behind him and gently covered his ears. You don't need to listen to anything. Mo Ting felt the warmth of Tongning's hands and immediately covered them with his palms. He then placed a kiss on her lips. Only you would put me first when something happens. Because I care about you the most, Tongning smiled gently. I know that when something like this happens, it wouldn't be difficult for you to deal with it. But, after all, other people have nothing to do with you and can't hurt your heart. But this time it's different. She can't hurt me either. Mo Ting's amber eyes emitted a chill. He then pulled Tongning over to the sofa and sat down. He then said calmly, Actually, I didn't spend much time with my mother because she was against me taking over Hai Rui from my grandfather. Actually, her surname used to be Bei. She changed her surname to Hua after she had a falling out with my grandfather. But as for the exact details, only they know. Since I was 10, she has been traveling around the world doing research. So my understanding of her is actually similar to that of a normal friend. In fact, sometimes it's even worse. because of the Mo family's protective nature. Even though she was against me taking over Hyrule, she still chose to turn a blind eye to it. Over the years, our relationship has remained polite and kind on the surface. After hearing this, Tongning was even more confused. All she could do was stare at Mo Ting. In that case, why does she dislike actors so much? Actually, a long time ago, although she was unhappy about me taking over Hyrule, she didn't hate actors to the extent that she disliked them. In fact, we even argued a few times about this. So, when did this change happen? I was planning to send Liu Che overseas to investigate, but he was held up today, so he didn't have time to leave yet. Mo Ting explained. All in all, Mo Ting's understanding of Hua Wenfeng was still quite hazy. Alright, as long as this matter doesn't hurt you, then it's fine. It's just that our current situation. Don't worry, leave it to me. Mo Ting comforted. You just need to give me some time. I've said it before, I'm never worried that you won't be able to resolve it. I'm simply worried that you won't be able to do it. Tongning was, after all, Mo Ting's mother. At a time like this, she could empathize with Mo Ting's dilemma. After all, because of Xia Yuling, she had suffered a lot in the past. So, she understood the pain of being dragged down by a family member. Can't bear to do it. Mo Ting had never thought so. During this time, Elder Mo called to show his concern. At that time, Mo Ting was busy with PR, so Tongning picked up the phone. As soon as Elder Mo heard Tongning's voice, he immediately said, "Ignore that crazy woman. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. This woman is simply unreasonable." It wasn't without reason that Elder Mo was so angry. After all, the Mo family and Tang family's reputation had been completely destroyed by Hua Wenfeng. Grandfather, don't worry, Ting will handle it. But you've implicated your family for no reason, Elder Mo sighed. Elder Mo sighed. Wenfeng wasn't like this before.
I don't know when she changed.
As soon as Elder Mo heard that Mo Ting would handle it, he immediately hung up the phone. However, Tongning noticed the hidden meaning in Elder Mo's words, so she immediately stopped him. Grandfather, wait. What's wrong? Can you tell me a little about Mom's past? Tongning almost forgot that Elder Mo was the person that was most familiar with Hua Wenfeng. Past? In the past, she was very considerate. But now, perhaps it's because she's going through menopause? Tongning did not ask any further, nor did she continue to chat with Elder Mo. She was certain that the questions in her heart were also unsolved mysteries for Mo Ting. Another big piece of entertainment news was released in Beijing, and the person who revealed it was Mo Ting's mother. The internet was in a heated discussion. Everyone wanted to know if Hua Wenfeng's words were true or not. And Zaheo gave Tongning a phone call, but she told him not to worry. So, Zaheo continued to immerse himself in his search for the woman called Xiao Yi. Perhaps it was because she felt guilty for hitting Zaheo. When Zaheo went to the stunt double's location, the stunt double did not show up. Afterwards, Zaheo went to the overhead bridge and asked around for more information. But he still couldn't find the stunt double. Zaheo thought to himself, this little girl is so smart. She must be watching my every move from afar. So, he pretended to leave and sat in the car for an hour. By the time he returned to the stall, the stunt double had indeed arrived. However, as soon as she saw Zaheo, she acted like she had seen a ghost as she immediately ran away. Zaheo instinctively chased after her. But the two ran for a few kilometers. Just as they were both exhausted, Zaheo suddenly yelled in front of him, "Why are you running? If I don't run after hitting you, do you think I'm going to get chased? Are you stupid?" The stunt double held onto her waist as she distanced herself from Zaheo. "How about this? I'll help you fix your bones and give you a massage where I hit you earlier." "Okay, as long as you don't run away again," Zaheo comforted as he held onto his chest. "In that case, let's find a place to sit down peacefully?" The stunt double asked cautiously. "Okay." The two agreed to return to the stall. But just as Zaheo sat down, the stunt double threw a slap at him. This time it was not a slap to his face but to his neck. As soon as Zaheo fell to the ground, the stunt double immediately pushed the stall away and ran away. A moment later, another passerby helped Zaheo up. "Young man, I told you not to provoke Xiaoyi. Why didn't you listen? Perhaps Auntie knows where she lives?" The auntie looked at Zaheo in shock as she stuttered. "What are you planning to do?" Of course, he was going to do what he had to do. He had been hit by the same woman twice. If he didn't find the little brat, he wasn't going to give up. And Zaheo couldn't be bothered talking to the woman as he pulled out his wallet. As soon as the woman saw Zaheo's sincerity, she immediately sold Xiaoyi out. Of course, and Zaheo had no idea that this step he had taken was enough to change his life. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.